brother man. In every nation in the Caribbean, we suffering down in the Caribbean. And it's all because of stinking oppression, repressive education for a chosen few. So many brothers on the corner, cause no school to go, no work to do, crying sin kicks, the crying Nevis, in Antigua, in Dominica, oppressors, leave we alone. Oppressors, come off the bone.
Shut alive, shut alive.
Colonialism went, oh that I know. But oppression never ever let we go. They granted independence few by few, but oppressors never ever left them to. With his imperialistic game plan, he monopolized the land. Now the people of the Caribbean ain't got much food, ain't got much land. The crying Binsha, Erie back in Grenada, in Jamaica, Trinidad, Guyana, oppressors, leave we alone. Oppressors, come off the bone.
Shut alive, shut alive.
The thing that hurt me most about oppression is the involvement of we politicians. You both, brother, to help fight oppression. Brother, get in there and join the bandwagon. You oppose the ruling party, you become an enemy, and you could swear to Jah Almighty. That's your destiny, your destiny. The crying NASA in Bermuda, in Aruba, Martinique, St. Lucia, oppressors, leave we alone. Oppressors, come off the bone. Oppressors, leave we alone. Oppressors, come off the bone. Oppressors, leave we alone. Oppressors, come off we bone. Leave we alone. Come off we bone. Right. Oppressors, 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 oppressors.
The songs of the man Beckett there with the song Oppression. And that is what kicking our butts throughout the region, throughout the world, but more so in our sister island of Queen City, Nevis. The oppression continues. I'm DJ Morrishaw, and I'm coming to you from a remote location here in sunny St. Croix, US Virgin Islands this afternoon, this evening. I want to thank my Uncle Eustace Hutchinson there for affording me the opportunity for the internet to stream live this evening. Yes, I'm here in St. Croix. I must say, I came in to show my last respects to a very good brother, a gentleman by the name of Brother Tyson, celebrating the life of a legend out of Antigua. You know, Brother Tyson is a legend here in the VI. I met him through cricket. And I must say, the sermon today was very uplifting. Reminded me of a lot of things about the world and what we have to deal with here. I also had the pleasure of meeting many old friends, many new friends. As a matter of fact, the pastor that did the service this morning is one of our very own Kittitian there out of Newton Ground, Pastor Francis. I think his first name is Ricky. We went to Sandy Point High together, and it was good seeing him again. But it was a lovely, lovely funeral. My boy Dean, the main Dean, and other crew, Brother Galloway, and the Jarvis family. I want to thank everyone for taking the time out and I must say, laying out the welcome carpet here for me in St. Croix. Also want to thank my brother there, Brother Carl Morris over there in St. Thomas, Sister Felicia Morris, the man Avon Brown, aka our sister Patsy Brown, Matt and Ralph, and the crew there in St. Thomas for also opening the doors there for me and showing me enough love and respect there and that end. As we get ready to dive into some conversation this evening, I should have a guest joining me shortly, one of our very own there in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, the man no other than Andrew Huey should be joining me shortly for us to have a little chit chat, giving some updated news and stuff like that. Let me check and make sure that I sent the information across to Brother Huey. While I do that, let me drop another track and come back and get into the conversation. I know it's a hot day here at St. Croix, a lot to talk about, and it's just a total different atmosphere here in the Virgin Islands to what we would be accustomed to there in the good US of A, the New York area. I know there's some madness going on throughout the Caribbean with these politicians. Sometimes we don't even know who to trust. So I'm going to drop this track because I actually observed some madness taking place there in St. Thomas and more so here in St. Croix. So I'm going to drop this track here by the man Controller. As I say, good evening to my Uncle Eustace, the man Brother Deuce right across the road there, my cousin there, Brother Kent Bernier, Pamela Bernier, and company. I'm going to touch base with some of you folks online shortly, but let me drop this one here by my boy, the man Controller, sorry. This one is called Madness, and we're going to get right into the program shortly. Stand by. You know, we are on early this evening. When I come late, you all want to kill me. You all want to know where I'm at. So we're taking me so long. So I hope this evening I drop in a couple of minutes early. Hope you guys can appreciate it. I want to big up my engineer there, Brother Ike. How you doing, Brother Ike? Good evening. Thanks for all your support, my brother. The man Elvan Ali and the man the Alvan Brown. How about Brother Carbo there in Nevis? I hope Carbo is online. Remember to drop your address and information there where the folks can find their good goat water and steamed fish and green banana there and St. Croix. So stand by for the man Controller, and I'll be right back with you. Controller.
world today. Superpowers just have us waiting day after day. While the poor man suffering, you sit down in Congress negotiating. While hunger and violence in the world still existing, we have a havoc and pure frustration eating our souls. Screaming to United Nations to save the world from this madness. 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 Facing the earth. The violence in South Africa, it's affecting the whole world all over with its madness. Madness. The refugees up in Bosnia, a sign of madness all over. I say madness. It seems so sad, like the whole world is going mad. Mad. Real mad. We go to bed at night not thinking about our fellow man or about the brutal slaying in Afghanistan. While they ask for ceasefire, you're destroying roads and bridges all over, leaving so many thousand children of war. What disaster! This misery, hunger and agony, tearing their young souls, screaming to United Nations to save the world from this madness. 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 The violence in South Africa, it's affecting the whole world all over with its madness. Madness. The refugees up in Bosnia, a sign of madness all over. I say madness. It seems so sad, like the whole world is going mad. Mad. Real mad. War is senseless and chaotic, affecting young and old. So many hearts just keep on breaking, it's out of control. While they shoot our journalists, you can't sit down here and just accept this. And we need humanitarian aid. It's our business. Humanitarian organizations all around the world, get up now and take some action and save some souls from this madness.
You're the lungs are alive.
Madness. Madness. Affecting the violence in South Africa, it's affecting the whole world all over with it. Madness. Madness. The refugees up in Bosnia, a sign of madness all over. I say madness. It seems so sad, like the whole world is going mad. Mad. Real mad. tried with diplomatic procedures to save Somalia. Take away the hunger and fear, sending medical care while they mourn their loss and keep watching their country disintegrating. Looters with arms only stopping food distributing. Call on Security Council, protect them without fear. Moving now and show these people that someone cares about this madness. 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 Affecting the earth. The violence in South Africa, it's affecting the whole world all over with its madness. Madness. The refugees up in Bosnia, a sign of madness all over. I say madness. It seems so sad, like the whole world is going mad. Mad. Real mad.
Yes, that's the sound of the man controller talking about the madness that's going on around the globe, but more so in the beloved Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, and more so in our sister island there, Queen City Nevis. Pure madness, pure madness. When you hear these people talking about they love you and you must vote for them and they're going to do right by you on this nonsense, it's just pure madness when they get in there. I want to say good evening to some folks there online. I want to say good evening to Weeks Abel Miller. How about Joel Richardson, Avril, Rosie Keynes, Sandra Thompson? How about Velina Ali? Want to big up Sandra Merritt. How are you doing? Good evening. Adesta Door, how are you doing? Good evening. Sergi Claxton, good evening, good evening. Frankie Gums, how about Sebastian Williams? Marilyn Farah, how are you doing? Good to know that you're touching base with the people of St. Kitts Nevis. How are you doing? Lovely. Everything good with you? Millie Nisbet Dolphin, how are you doing? Good evening. Diane Flanders, sorry. Brother Sebastian Williams, I guess you're watching someplace in the Connecticut area. Patrona Ballot, are you in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, or are you over there in good old St. Martin? Visha Stapleton, how are you doing? The man Curtis Crook, how are you doing? Simona Cinder, Cornelius, how are you doing? Diane Morton. Joan Matthews, how are you doing? Where in the world are you? Hope all is well. Evan Jeffers, I guess you're watching from the UK. How is the weather there in the UK? I see I have my brother there, Brother Andrew online. Stand by, Andrew. I'm going to be with you shortly. Ermin Farrell, good evening. How are you doing? Everything good? Colleen, Patrick Brown, Abby, Harry Ganachibal, how are you doing? Good evening. How are you doing? Adrian Berry, how are you doing, my brother? Welcome to the ride. Jeffrey Pemberton, how are you doing? Celine Tobias, how are you doing? Everything is well. Kenneth Tyson, good evening. Melissa Pemberton, Ingrid Brown, Carolyn Blake, how are you doing? All right, Nigel McMahon, Addison Mills, how are you doing? Welcome. Livy Brown, Desmond Hicks, how are you doing, my brother? Thanks for taking me around St. Croix today and being my transport to and from the cemetery and also to the repast. I hope your wife didn't beat up on you when you got back home. You are my #1 police officer out of St. Kitts Nevis, and we maintain that brotherly love. I appreciate you, my brother. Maurice Saran, how are you doing? Chessel Watson, how are you doing, brother Chessel? Greetings coming to you from the man Desmond Hicks here in St. Croix. Marlene Cross, how are you doing? Good evening. Romela Jeffords, Lorna Dorr, Clayton Davis, How about Ingrid Daniel Farrell? How are you doing? Brother Ken Gonzalez, how are you doing? How is Sister Debbie? Everything good with you? Pearline Swanston, welcome to the ride. Ruby Walters, welcome. Sonia Berry, welcome to the ride. Paul Francis, how are you doing there in good old St. Martin? Angela Dorr. Brother Elvis Williams, aka the King Freddy, everything good with you? You're still away anywhere? Marva G. Beverly Morrishaw, how are you doing, Sister Beverly Morrishaw? Gwyneth Morrishaw, how are you doing? My mascot dear Sister Dorothy Allen, my baby girl there, how are you? Loretta Clark Quilly, my son there, JefroyMorrishaw Jr. over there in the LA area. How are you and the Lady Jazz is doing? Everything good? My daughter there, Rachel Morrishaw in the Ohio area. How about my sister there, Esther in Tortola, Makish and the kids, how you guys hanging? Joseph, Jeremy, everybody good? Well, as I said, I have my brother here standing by online, so the list of names is just too much to handle at the moment, so I'll get back to the list. But I want to take the opportunity to tap your screen there, Brother Andrew Huey. Thank you. Good evening, Brother Andre. Thanks for taking the time out and joining the platform. It's been long overdue. Welcome to the DJ Morrishaw experience. Just give a quick synopsis of who is Andrew Huey before we get into the chit chat.
Yes, well, thanks. Thank you for having me on. Well, yeah, I'm a journalist, been in the media field for over 20 years, and been in St. Kitts Nevis for the past 14 years, started out working with WinFM here, and then eventually started my own company, one of which is SK Newsline, which I work on every day as a news director, where we cover news in St. Kitts Nevis and across the Caribbean, and you know, just doing our part to serve in the Federation.
Great man, great man. And then I had several encounters with you. You interviewed me sometime back at Freedom FM and Issues, and very good interviewer. You do your homework and everything. And during those period, the political atmosphere was so hot, and I know the pressure was on. And like I said to people, I hope that you are one of those journalists don't get caught up in the nonsense and do your stuff. And I must say to you that so far, I only can speak for myself and from my observation. You have been one of those journalists that has been trying your best to stay away from the politics and be true to the art form. So welcome to the DJ Morrishaw experience, like I said. And what you have for us this evening, what is happening and the forefront there in our beloved Federation of St. Kitts Nevis? All
right, well, firstly, I think one of the big things on the agenda right now is a press conference. Well, not a press conference, it's actually an interview with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister would have returned from Trinidad and Tobago today, and from the airport straight to Koi Resort, where a group of journalists were there waiting for him for the interaction he normally has once a month with the members of the media, where he would have given an update on his trip to the US, where he was at the IMF World Bank spring meetings in Washington, D.C. last week. And then right after that, he went to Trinidad and Tobago for the Caribbean Regional Crime Summit, where CARICOM leaders, including himself, would have discussed the issue of crime and violence, which is, is not only a St. Kitts Nevis problem, it's a problem right across the region. So they would have discussed, and he gave an update on that. And one of the things he spoke about is that the approach to crime has to be a regional approach, and it has to be an approach that is scientific. It can no longer be that, we're working in our own little silos and our own little space trying to solve crime, when really and truly it's something that's affecting the entire region, and really we should have a regional approach to it. So he spoke on that. Several questions, he'd spoken on several things. The media would have asked him questions pertaining to the Haitian or diplomat in Haiti who was kidnapped over the weekend. A very unfortunate incident. That's certainly on the forefront of the news. The unfortunate thing about that is that we don't know what the situation is. And based on what the Prime Minister is saying, it is difficult to even get information out of Haiti at this point because of the situation in Haiti. Even the agencies that you would normally expect to get information from, you're talking about, government agencies and entities that the government here would be relaying to try to get information on the situation on the ground as it relates to the kidnapping, that is not giving much information to the authorities here. So we just have to wait and see. And the Prime Minister did say that they are trying to reach out to other countries to see how best they can assist in this situation, because as it stands right now, they are in the dark completely as it relates to the situation in Haiti and the kidnapping of the diplomat, which, by the way, is the father of the honorary consul in Haiti. He's also the deputy, he's vice consul as well. So he's the father of the consul, and he's the deputy consul. So it's a really unfortunate incident, and we're just praying and hoping for the best where that is concerned. Tying to that, of course, is the fact that, as you would know, and as most of your viewers would probably know, for the past few weeks, we've had a situation where African migrants who were reportedly on their way to the U.S. Virgin Islands on a boat leaving from Antigua and Barbuda capsized. Some of them were rescued. Some believed to have perished because they have not located the bodies or located any one of them. So it is presumed by the authorities that these persons are dead. And the ones who survived are currently being housed here in St. Kitts. Currently, they're staying at the St. Peter's Community Center. We're not getting much information right now as it stands because the matter is still being investigated. We understand from the police, the last major report we got from them is that 2 of the individuals who were on that boat from Antigua were brought in for questioning. One of them, his relative, his mother actually, is from St. Kitts, lives in St. Kitts. And after questioning, he was released to her custody, for lack of a better term. So that matter is still being investigated. To the best of our knowledge, no one has been charged as yet where that is concerned, that situation. And we're waiting to see whether or not the government will decide on what will be the fate of the African migrants here. As I said, they are staying right now at the community center in St. Peter's. They've been taken care of. They've been fed. They've been housed. The government of Antigua has indicated that they would be willing to have them repatriated to Antigua if the authorities here decide to do that. Just as a background for your viewers, the situation is that these African migrants, most of them from Cameroon, came on a chartered flight from Africa to Antigua and Barbuda late last year. With intention, it was believed that they came there as tourists, but then it turned out that they were actually fleeing a situation in their country, and with the intention of boarding another flight to South America that would take them eventually on this very dangerous journey up to the southern border of the United States, with the hope of getting to the US and getting asylum. But when the government or the authorities were aware of what was happening, they discontinued the flights, and so these migrants ended up being stuck in Antigua. The government, however, there has indicated that they are willing to accommodate them, and so they did not send them back. They gave them the option if they wanted to go back. They could have gone back if they wanted to. Some of them stayed. Some of them, I think, were repatriated. And the ones who stayed were given the opportunity to assimilate in the community. They were given the opportunity to get their status regularized and to get jobs and to work in the community. So I guess for some people, it is baffling for some why you'd want to leave that situation to go on a very small boat with the hope of getting to a U.S. territory in order to get asylum. We know that the ultimate goal is to get to the U.S. That is what they want to do. But if you're in a country where you are being afforded the opportunity to live and work without being bothered, then why leave? I think that's the question some people are asking. I've had a chance to speak with my colleague in Antigua and Barbuda, Garfield Burford from ABS TV, and he would have indicated that while some Antiguans have been welcoming to the African migrants, some are suspicious, some, for whether it be political reasons or other reasons, don't welcome them. They don't want them there, essentially, and have made it known as much to them. And so that may have been some of the reason why some would say, well, let me go on this dangerous journey to try and get out of Antigua and get to somewhere else. But again, the government of Antigua has been quite welcoming to them, and we just have to wait and see what the authorities here will decide. Not forgetting, of course, that just a few weeks prior to that, we also were housing Haitian migrants here who also were in a similar situation, almost a similar situation, not as dangerous as what transpired with the African migrants, but they were in an almost similar situation, and they ended up here on our shores as well. And so they too are also in government care, being again taken care of, being fed, and awaiting the outcome of court proceedings that will determine whether or not they get asylum here or whether they will be repatriated to Haiti. So those are some of the big stories that are happening right now. And there are several other things that are happening, but those are certainly on the front burner of the news.
Okay. There was some concern there a couple of days ago about the release of the information for the music festival. There seems to be some chit chatter about that and what is going on. How is that coming there on that end?
Yeah, well, the Minister of Tourism would have had a press conference last week where, among other things, she would have announced the other wave of artists for music festival. The two things that came out of that has been generating some debate online and other places has been, one, the fact that Burna Boy from Nigeria, a major Afrobeat artist right now, very popular, is on the headline as one of the artists for the show. Now, there have been some information published suggesting that he is being paid an exorbitant amount of money as his honorarium, as his fee. We don't know how much money is actually being paid or what is negotiated with him, because the organizers of music festival or the minister have not released that information. But going based on what he would normally fetch in terms of fee for concerts and events, there is a lot of debate around that you know, he charges a high fee and his requirements are quite lofty if compared to some other artists. And some people feel, based on the debate we're seeing online, that, you know, that money could have been used maybe to bring in a couple other artists, or even to use to do other things other than to pay Burna Boy. Now, again, like I said, we don't know how much Burna Boy is actually being paid. We don't know if the negotiations and the deals that were made to get him here were different compared to what he would normally require. So it is difficult to have a debate on how much Burna Boy is being paid when we really don't know how much he's actually being paid by the Music Festival Committee. Of course, those who are countering that argument would actually say that, well, you know, Burna Boy is a hot artist. You know, him coming to St. Kitts Nevis, it will attract a lot of people to come to the festival in the surrounding islands who have not seen him live and will get an opportunity to see him. And as we know, the music festival, the objective of the music festival, is, among other things, is to generate economic activity in St. Kitts and Nevis during the slow season. So, you know, we're entering now the slow season of the tourism period, tourism season, and having the music festival is a major, major event that generates economic activity in the country. So even if, and some are arguing, even if the government or the organizers are paying Burna Boy as much as people are saying he's being paid, it is probably, in their eyes, worth it because of the activity that's going to generate in the economy just for him being here, as well as the other artists. So that's one debate that came out. The other debate that started, and I was
before you go on to the other debate, Andrew, and I think you could relate to what I'm going to say now, because you've been a foreigner, not being a Kittitian division, coming to St. Kitts Nevis with your talent, which was at a high level compared to some of our journalists back home. I know that you had to go through a very rough period as well before you could land on your feet where you are. I have seen the struggles. I have been there when you were struggling much more. What I would like to say is this: we in St. Kitts Nevis have to stop being so passionate about things, use our head and not our heart in St. Kitts Nevis. Because I listened to all of the way. Government just changed in August. This government campaign and many things on their manifesto. And I'm pretty sure, without speaking to any of them, the mess that they met, both economically and otherwise, that have to be corrected and put in place before people can even see some fruitful action from them. It's enormous. And I listened to former members of the past administration and some of their supporters complaining about why the music festival, the first chain of artists, were not released. And after that was done, what taking them so long to bring out the second chain of artists? And in my view, according to Prime Minister Drew, when he made his original report, he said St. Kitts Nevis was broke, and he break down the reason why. He said we were broke, there was no money. So for a government that just got in there and the government should be broke, are struggling to maintain certain things. There are many citizens since COVID have not recovered and have not caught themselves to date. And for those pundits that would say the monies could have been put to better use, I support them in one sense, because I know there are people in St. Kitts Nevis are in dire need of financial help. Their properties, their light bill, their water bill, many things that they can get. But you have them crying out for music festival. And these artists, they have their talent, they have managed to put themselves in a position where they can demand this kind of money. So on one hand, if the people of St. Kitts Nevis, who feels that the music festival is that important, more important than taking care of other essential stuff, and the government yield to their requests and decide to put off the music festival, I don't think they would want to put off a music festival that will not be successful to bring in regional and international folks to support the music festival, even encouraging folks to come in the future. They want to do things. It's their first music festival since being elected with a band. Right. So it's either you do it or you don't do it. So I, as a promoter and a former manager that work with other artists, I know the struggles with these countries and these bands and these artists. And with the cries of the local artists about music festival, if this was about Carry Festa, I would have engaged in that conversation, because Carry Festa means something different for our local artists and bring a different genuine. For our local artists, I've said to them time and time again, many of them, the material that they produce for Carnival, when Carnival done, there's not material that will go international or even regional. You might find one or two of them that will have the passing grade, but on a wider level, it is not something that people gravitate to. And we have to blame ourselves, because we have we have a lot of talent in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yeah.
But people believe getting on a computer and put a few beats together and chant about bit bottom and walk up and this and that is music. That's not going to get you any place. So when you're going to have a Boner Boy that is internationally recognized and a Marshall Montano that have gone from singing for free to charging those type of money, they put in the time. Right. And they got there, they put in their time.
Yeah. No, you have a point.
So, yeah. So I would not even get into any long debate on it, because our people got to stop think with their heart and with their head. It's either you want the music festival and it's going to be done the correct way, or forget about the music festival and spend the money on the local people and try to do something local. Because you could have local community events where you're not going to bring in anyone from the outside for them. And well, right. You're not going to bring in much people, and it's not going to do much on a national level. So if you're going to do the music festival part, you're going to do it the right way, and it's going to cost. Yeah. So sorry for cutting you off, but
no, you're absolutely right. And if I had to add to that, the music festival, the St. Kitts Music Festival, going on for as long as it has been going on for, is actually one of the premier music festivals in the Caribbean, remaining music festivals in the Caribbean. I think the only one, well, St. Lucia is just starting back up the St. Lucia Jazz Festival. I think they've had it already, maybe a few weeks, or is about to have it. And then, of course, in Jamaica, you have Reggae Sumfest, which has been going on for quite some time as well. All of that costs money. And in the case of the music festival, as I said earlier, the authorities have always said that the objective of the music festival really wasn't even to make money. It was always to generate economic activity in St. Kitts, in particular, St. Kitts and Nevis. And around that time, you can actually see, you know, the hotel rooms, when you check around, hotels are fully booked. Car rentals are more or less rented out, all their cars. So you tend to get a lot of buzz and activity happening on the ground in St. Kitts during music festivals. So even from the standpoint of it being profitable, well, it was just in recent years that it has been recording some level of profit. But nonetheless, the objective has always been to generate income. And one thing I presume will happen with Burna Boy being here, he was supposed to perform in St. Martin some months back, and for some reason it didn't happen. So who is not to say then that people from St. Martin might travel over
That's the idea.
in the hundreds to come to see Burna Boy because they didn't get a chance to see him in St. Martin. So there are a lot of, I mean, there are pros and cons, as you said, but it's a matter of weighing up what is more beneficial at this stage in the final outcome. And I think that is probably what some people are going to argue on, the pros outweighing the cons in that sense. The other debate.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Before just quick,
yes.
I just want to say, with them speaking about the Burna Boy issue, I would like to hear them also give credit and credence to Dwyer Astafan for this brainchild of the music festival. And this 25th anniversary, I would hope that the committee are doing something special to honor the Honorable J. Dwyer Astafan for this idea, because when the former administration was there, when this thing came about, they wasn't in favor of it. Then they got in there, then it was the best thing. Now they're not there and it's all the comments out there. But at the end of the day, I would hope that they are thinking seriously about giving Dwyer some kind of recognition for this 25th anniversary, because you never know when we're going to be passing off this earth. And, we're just passing through. So I would hope that they do it this time around and not waiting until the 26th.
Okay, all right. So the other debate that also came up as well is the fact that the Minister Marsha Henderson would have mentioned at a press conference last week that the event, they're trying to make the event cannabis friendly, where persons will be able to, there'll be a designated space, so to speak, for persons to utilize or to use cannabis or marijuana. While I was hosting issues on Tuesday on Freedom FM, a caller called in and a few other people have called in to debate on the minister's remarks. She did say, though, and I must caution, she did say that it is something that the legal team is looking into. So they're working together with the police to see how that can be arranged. And so some people felt, that shouldn't be encouraged. They feel like, it would be encouraging an increase in smoking of marijuana, not so much amongst the adults themselves, but amongst the younger population. Then, of course, others would have called in and debated for the minister and actually praising the minister for looking at that initiative. So that is something we're going to be monitoring in the next few days as the Music Festival Committee and the authorities work out how that will be implemented. Then we will also hear what the arguments of those who are against that will say, and then we'll, I guess, come to a common ground where that is concerned. So those are the two main things that I think came out as it relates to the music festival.
In relation to that situation with the cannabis using, and this is why I said that these politicians, when they run for office, I know Marsha Henderson is a very talented, sensible person. And I know that we have to try and please all sectors of our communities. But if the people in St. Kitts, Nevis, are the government ministers, are the police officers who should be giving recommendation at these meetings, would think back to what we just experienced for Sugar Mass, cannabis should never be encouraged at this event. I can tell you that I experienced it on 4th Street. I experienced it at the ferry terminal. There should be no encouragement of that being used. As a matter of fact, I think the message that was sent, people feel like they had the green light to just smoke up the town. Even though the police keep saying that you're supposed to smoke, or even the AG, during his parliamentary presentation and during his presentation and this program, explains that you are allowed to smoke it in your private areas, not publicly. You can still be charged and summoned and give a ticket and whatever for smoking like that in public. But our people of St. Kitts Nevis, for some reason, they don't use their brain. It's a thing they feel like they have a right. You try to speak to them about, listen, we're playing a game of domino on the board. You got 3 people sitting there, a 4th one come on the domino board, and first thing he light up is a spliff. And you ask him or her to out it, and it's like you commit a crime. Mm-hmm. So I would say for this music festival that they should not entertain that kind of thing, because they're not going to be able to control it. They will not have enough security forces to control that behavior. And it's going to encourage and bring other criminal activities during that weekend. We do not want it. We have time to sensitize the general public and the folks and the use of the marijuana and their legal rights. And I understand where Sister Henderson might be going with it. But my recommendation would be not to go down that road during this music festival.
In addition to that, and as you talk about education, that is something that I think is needed as well, because persons, as you said, probably feel they have the legal right now to smoke anywhere, which of course, as you rightfully pointed out, the AG would have said publicly, as well as the Prime Minister, that it's not a license to go and smoke anywhere. It's really for you in your privacy, in the privacy of your home or in your private setting where you're not disturbing somebody else. Because it is indeed, people would have complained and said that, they are being encountered by, increased marijuana smoke when they go around town or wherever it is. I remember in an interview the AG would have done, I think it was on Freedom FM, he did say that they are looking into the possibility of having designated areas in Bastille where people who choose to smoke marijuana can do so without effect. So in other words, a smoking zone then, so to speak. So that way you don't have people just smoking indiscriminately all around. And I also hear there was a caller who called in and actually said that day when I was doing the show that the marijuana smoke doesn't affect anybody. They never heard of anybody being affected by secondhand marijuana smoke or whatever.
That's not true.
Even if that is the case, there are people who don't like the smell of smoke, period, whether it be marijuana or cigarette or cigar for that matter. No one wants to, if they're not a smoker. I know for personally, I'm not a smoker, so I don't particularly like to be in a smoke-filled environment, whether it be marijuana, whether it be cigarette, whether it be cigar. So people should have the right, if they are non-smokers, to not have to be in the presence of smoke at a public venue or at a public event. And at the same time, the persons who are smoking should be given the right to smoke in their own setting without having to disturb those who don't smoke. So I think that is something that requires public education, as you said. And for the event, I don't know how it's going to be implemented. I would imagine they will probably have some challenges, as you pointed out. But it would be interesting to hear what the police and those those who are going to be helping to craft from the legal team, help to craft how it's going to be done. It will be interesting to see how that will take place.
I do not know if you had the experience as I did back in the days when smoking was still allowed on airplane. They had the non-smoking areas and the smoking area.
No,
It just couldn't work. It just didn't work. It just couldn't work.
Yeah.
You understand? I used to sit in my non-smoking area and the smoke is killing me back there. We used to have non-smoking areas in restaurants and smoking areas. In North America, in New York, same thing. Smoke travels. You cannot trap a smoke any place. And I am saying to you, I experienced the marijuana thing, and anyone who was in Bastille Juve morning in that vicinity of what the street that goes across, when you pass the clock, you make a left going towards where government. What's the name of that street?
Princess Street.
Princess Street.
Princess Street. Yes.
Between Princess Street and Central Street. Partner, it was a cloud. And they killed me. It was a cloud, But I mean, we pay government ministers to manage the country, and I guess they're trying to be balanced with the request from people. There's a lot of smokers in the Federation, but I know, and I'm of the view that you tell these bad boys in Zinkits that, listen, that's your section over there. You are allowed to smoke in that corner and the fence. You're not going to stop them coming up on the stage and whatever, because some of those bad boys have to impress the young girls, vice versa, and they're going to do their thing. So I wish them luck with that. There's a lot that is happening there politically still, as you're aware, and I am out here. I have no axe to grind, and basically I have no one to fear when I am doing my political commentary. And there are people there crying in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis. And I don't know if you can recall 7 years ago, 2 years ago, a year ago, the place was quiet with a lot of things happening. But since the government changes, there are cries that going on out there right now, especially on Nevis. And as the journalist that you is, I really don't want to get you caught up in my 2020 politics because I'm going there shortly, right? And I don't want to expose you to my stuff. So I will give you the opportunity if you want to speak on any other matter. It's fine. If you want to hang on, you could hang on. And if you feel you want to comment on anything, feel free. But I'm just advising you that following our quick debate here, quick conversation, I'm heading down the political line because there's a lot of concern that is going on. There are people not only in St. Kitts that don't think things is happening fast enough, but there's also people at Nevis that feel that way. Now, I have my views, and my views are just my views. My views doesn't mean that it's 100% correct. It's just views. And just the same that you as a media person and a citizen of the Federation there observing, it is just your views. But we also have to listen to everyone's views because the people are now seeing things. And I'm pretty sure that what brought this conversation about the marijuana, there's those folks that wants to smoke the weed and they're reaching out and they're commenting and they're gonna have that debate. But in the interest of the Federation and the interest of everyone, I don't think this is the time to encourage that thing. If somebody wants to take the smoke outside and they come in and do the thing, fine. But I would even go as far as have them pat down people for that weed because it will create a problem. I have seen it, and music festival is a different bowl of wax. You know?
Yeah, well, like I said, it's going to be a challenge, I think, and it will be interesting to see how they're going to do it because, again, as you pointed out, you know, these things, you know, tend to, if it's not being implemented properly and you don't have the manpower to do it, you will have a challenge. And as you pointed out too, some people may not want to abide by the smoking zone, and you may have a situation where the smoke travels as well. So again, we just have to wait and see how it will be implemented. I do have, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
One of the big problems I have seen since my time growing up in St. Kitts Nevis as a little boy, we had respect for police, whether they're in uniform or out of uniform. You see a police coming, or any law enforcement person, or even an adult, you show respect. I see these young people have no respect neither for their elders or for police, not even their parents. So who's going to tell them they can't like the marijuana? There's young men in St. Paul's that I could have speak to back in the days and said to them, you know, don't do this, don't do that. So they're going to tell me, man, I'm a big man. You can't tell me where to light me marijuana. You cannot tell me where to drink my liquor. You cannot tell me this. The criminal activities that are taking place today. I mean, right here, I'm in St. Croix at the moment. And I came in here on, I came in here Monday afternoon, sorry, for a funeral. And when I got here, I found out there was some shooting at a club here. One person got killed on the spot, and there were several other people that got injured. One was flown out to the US for medical service. Eventually, he passed away. And I met a friend of mine from St. Kitts today who told me that his grandson was also affected and in serious condition. They flew him out yesterday. And the granddaughter of the gentleman funeral that I came to today, she also got bruised, I understand, with a bullet in her shoulder. So that family almost had another chaos situation on their hand. You know, so the violence in this region, I do not know why people, you cannot make a simple suggestion or a simple comment before you return to some kind of argument and extend into what it is. I run a domino league there in New York, and I had to take a break some time back because I had 4 people from Jamaica sitting on a domino table, game going nice. And before the domino hand was finished, I heard them threatening to shoot each other. And I stopped the game. I went over and I stopped the game. I said, tell me something. How shuffling the dominoes and posing double six that you guys could get to a height of argument where you're threatening to shoot each other before the hand finish. I say, how is that possible? I say, you all get up off the board, man. I try them out the tournament. I tell them, get out. Because human has this thing right now that you cannot reason with them.
Yeah.
You cannot tell them they're doing you something wrong, partner. If you mash my toe, you mash my toe. Sorry, and we move on. That is the way it used to be, not today, you know.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do, you know, it's antisocial. You know, we become very antisocial as a people, generally. You know, before you could have communicated with people, as you said, you could talk and work things out. I think, you know, more and more people are becoming nonverbal in their interaction with people. So the natural thing is, when you are aggrieved, the natural thing is to be aggressive and to be, you know, respond with violence, as opposed to, you know, sit and talk. In fact, you have a disagreement with somebody and you said, look, let's have a conversation and work it out. You know, it may not result in violence per se, but people just sometimes tell you, no, I don't want to talk. I have nothing to say. And, you know, when you're unable to talk things out, because a lot of times, you know, you can avoid violence and you can avoid a lot of the outcomes that we see when you can sit down and reason.
Yeah.
Reasoning ability. But the more antisocial people are becoming, where you don't talk to people, you know, a lot of times people are just, you know, lost in their social media and that really is not always communication, because you putting something out on social media, on Facebook or whatever it is, you're not getting face-to-face interaction. You're having your interaction from your keyboard or your mouse or whatever it is, from your device online, but when it comes to face-to-face communication, you're getting little and little of that. And so by the time you realize, you become an antisocial agent and not even realize that, because of the fact that you're so engrossed in the technology. So then when you actually reach people face-to-face, you know, the heads are butting, as opposed to the conversation, because we no longer know how to communicate with each other on a face-to-face level.
You know what I observe over the years as well, why that culture have changed? And politicians might not realize that they are a big part of that problem, right? Because when politicians should be running, and if they were in power before, if they're the incumbent, instead of running on your work, on your record, what you have done. So every time someone asks a question, you respond with hate. You're cursing them. You're getting down in the gutter, chatting nonsense and acting a certain way, whether it's during parliament, because the broadcast parliament now on social media, people could see them the way they're acting, and the campaign trail. You got some politician, they are elected to office and they spend their time on social media doing all kind of hate, instead of trying to preach unity and togetherness and show respect. So the young people, they take from that. Just like if you have a little baby in your house growing up and they see you beat your mother, or beat your wife, or beat your girlfriend, they grow up feeling that this is the norm of life. So these young folks, they believe that these politicians, what they're doing, that is the new normal. So they come out and they do it. I do not know whether it's true or not, but I played a clip last week that some officers spoke about on Freedom FM about gangs in schools. In schools and whatever.
Yes, I saw that clip, yes.
And I am pretty sure that some of the higher ups, whether in government or in the hierarchy, in the high command, might not appreciate them saying that. But the reality is that if the problem is there, you have to acknowledge it's there and deal with it. Yes. You don't brush it under the table, and because someone speak about it, you want to bring them up on charges and all this kind of stuff. You know, this is supposed to be a new day. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask you this question. I mean, I don't know how you would answer it, but I know that you guys, you've been there for some time and you had at least been under 2 different governments at least. Mm-hmm. I think you was there under the previous Labour and you was there under the Team Unity, and now you have a new government. And I know that the journalists normally have a hard time getting information or getting question answered at these press conferences, if there is any at all. So between the last to the dispensation of government to what you are having now, what is your views on that? How is it improved or is it the same?
I see an effort by this administration in the interest of transparency. I've seen an effort for them trying to respond to the questions and the queries from the media. There's still some room for improvement though, because there are questions that some of our journalists are asking, which are not really getting straight answers on. So, but like I said, we do see some effort from the administration standpoint in terms of trying to get information. And what we've seen, for example, and if I could use the Attorney General as an example, he has been making the rounds on several media, giving information, providing information. So that's a welcome change. But like I said, again, the press conferences, though, some of the government press conferences, we do get information, but there are some questions that keep coming back up. And the reason why they keep coming back up is because we're not getting the straightforward answer or a concrete answer on some of those questions. But if the promises that have been made by this administration on the campaign trail and even since taking office, if those promises are fulfilled as it relates to the good governance agenda, and the area that we're watching closely is the freedom of information, which should put us in a position as members of the media and the public in general, because it's not just a law for media workers, it's actually a law for everybody to get information when needed, public information that they should know. We are watching closely to see, one, the amendments were passed. The law hasn't yet been gazetted, so we're waiting to see that happen. And I can also speak on behalf of the Media Association, because I'm also the president of the Media Association. We would have met with the Attorney General and the previous one to make recommendations to amend the original legislation when it was first passed, because there were things in the legislation that we felt that shouldn't have been there because it would impede the effectiveness of the law, and things that should be there that were not there. And so we had our first vice president and the communications director would have met with this current AG, discussed the amendments that we made some recommendations, and we were promised by the AG that most of the recommendations that we made would have been included in the amended law. So we're waiting to see that happen, one, and two, we're waiting to see also how the law functions, because that is going to be pivotal in us getting information. So aside from the press conferences, we would be able to get information easier, or should be able to get information much easier than how it is now and how it was before. Because how it is now and how it was before, without freedom of information, the only time you can request information of the government is when they're at a press conference. It shouldn't be that way. So we're waiting to see what happens.
And I'm happy that you went down that road, Andre, because I pay attention sometimes when I have the time to watch the press conferences. I will go back and look at the rebroadcasts on YouTube or whatever. And I'm at a loss where some of these journalists, they are following the script of some of these pundits, former politicians from the former administration who are out there trying to have some kind of gripe, sour grapes as they call it, instead of using their own common sense when they're asking questions. And I just want to show you a few, and you could give me your views on it. Mm-hmm. For example, the situation with the AG. They're talking about he should be brought before the courts for not paying his Social Security and time and all this kind of stuff. When that was something that was addressed, it was addressed appropriately, it was done. He paid whatever he had to be paid. Social Security did not have to take him to court like some other people who refuse to pay. In the instance of one Stachio Williams, who ran under the former PLP in number 5 against Sean Richards and Kenny Douglas, or in some 300,000+ to Social Security, where there was actually a case because he was not paying it, or didn't have any intention of paying it. If you are running for office and your government is in power, and you have not paid your Social Security to the point where they have to take you to court, your own government, that speaks volume. And I did not hear the journalists, I didn't hear Ian Patches-Libod, I didn't hear Sean Richards, I didn't hear the people out there crying for them not to allow Stasio to run in the last election. What took place was some days before they go to the polls, all of a sudden they said the matter was settled. Somebody paid $300 and whatever $1,000 for the gentleman. Well, if he didn't have the money to pay 2 weeks before, or a month before, where he find that money to come up with a couple days before the election to pay that? And still, nobody complained about him being on the ballot. They say, according to the former HAG, the former head of state, head of government, Timothy Harris, Stasio was the best candidate for Sandy Point at that time. So when I'm hearing people like Patches and journalists asking questions about the Honorable AG, I find that to be redundant. And journalists must know what question you want to push. Originally, you asked the question because it was in the media, I was in the community. But once the AG came and explained himself and the matter was resolved, that should be the end of that. Let's move on to the next topic.
Right.
The CBI. I listen to Patches week after week asking about a report on how much passport was sold. And people again feed into that. The journalists feed into that. I've heard the Prime Minister said that there's someone who is working in that area, and if you need that information, you go and you get it there. But you come to the Prime Minister to ask these questions. Patches was there until 2022. He was in New York as the ambassador to the United Nations. If he wanted that information, as a matter of fact, him and the former Prime Minister, the former HAG, his number one body, he could get that information if he wants. But they come on social media and push this propaganda to take away from the good things that is happening. And I think the journalists, they need to look at what they need to really push, the questions they can ask, because there are more valid questions that can be asked at these press conferences, and not what is popular to get some kind of like on social media or anything like that. And this is where I give you credit. And this is where I could have this conversation with you, because I listen to you, I have approached you one-on-one, I have approached you on WhatsApp, and your responses to me, if you think you was dropping short somewhere, you respond to me appropriately, and we have that understanding. So we are having this conversation so that we can educate each other, let each other know how we look at things differently. We have a responsibility to have a courteous discussion to try and educate and sensitize the general public. You and I should not be here arguing and cursing. We are doing the same thing. We are here trying to get information. And this takes me to the next topic. Vice versa, when there's a press conference in Nevis or St. Kitts, the journalists in these meetings, they're asking questions to the premier in Nevis. And the premier in Nevis at his press conferences don't have his team to respond like the Prime Minister would do in St. Kitts. So it's just the premier that is there, and they're asking seems to be specific questions. If you are part of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, whether you live in St. Kitts or Nevis, both islands, all nationals, all citizens should be concerned about what's going on in either island. The monies that comes into the Federation comes in for both islands. So when I'm hearing journalists going to a press conference in St. Kitts with the Prime Minister who said, and I'm going to hold his foot to the fire for that, he is the Prime Minister for everyone, St. Kitts and Nevis. He's the federal minister. He's the finance minister. And with all that happening in Nevis, the concern about the airport, the concern about the hospital, the concern about the opposition office, I am not hearing any concern coming from the journalists in St. Kitts about these things. These things are front and center in the social media and on the street. Vice versa, with what's happening in St. Kitts. I am not hearing the journalists and Nevis getting involved in that. So I do not know if you all have an organization and you all have conversation. I would like to see that the journalists in both St. Kitts and Nevis get a little more into what is happening for the good of all of us. Because I am out here. I am not a registered journalist in St. Kitts and Nevis, but I want to know that you guys, you journalists in St. Kitts and Nevis, get the respect and your due process. Because as you said earlier, you should not have to wait for a press conference to get information.
Right.
You should be able to do your investigation, investigative journalism, and come to the general public and talk about it.
Right.
If there's stuff that is going on wrong in government right now, you should be able to get that information and bring it. What I does, and what I've been doing for the past 2+ years, this is where me and the farmer have broke down. I speak to them softly. I send WhatsApp, I call, and I said what I observe. What are you going to do about it? And if you respond to me favorable, that you understand and you're going to look into it, or you're going to make the adjustment, I could sit back for 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, and give you the time to do it. But if you're going to just shut me down and say to hell with you, and I'm going to tell with a black boy there from St. Paul's, I'm not going to tell with a little boy there from Jamaica, then I got to bring it to the public and let the public deal with you. So you guys have a big job on your hand here. They say we are the what, fourth arm of government?
The fourth estate.
The fourth estate.
Let me just add, well, I'll just speak on some of the things you just spoke about. So for one, if I were to talk about the press conferences, I've always said, and this is just my personal opinion, press conferences are always used as the propaganda tool for whoever is organizing the press conference. So if it is the government organizing it, the government is using it to promote the government's well-being or the good news of the government. And they're also controlled environments, meaning that he who calls or she who calls the press conference can control how the press conference go. And we've seen in the past how some press conferences end up when, you know, if questions are asked that are unfavorable, what tends to happen. So I put that out there to say that for me, the effective way of always getting information or good stories or good interviews, so to speak, is always one-on-one interviews when you can sit down with the person, the politician in this case, whether it be the prime minister or any other minister, and engage them in one-on-one discussions. Whether it be, even if it's not a live interview, you're on the phone with them or whatever it is, you can be able to press them and ask follow-up questions and all of that, which you don't get a lot of at press conferences, partly because of how the press conferences are structured. Having said that, I do take the point that yes, you know, journalists can do some research, some more research when going to these press conferences so that they can ask more pointed questions. At the same time, however, I believe that as officers of the state, ministers and parliamentarians and those who are in authority should also make themselves available. I mean, I know they're busy, so you can't expect that they're going to be on call and available to answer your call all the time. That's totally understandable, and we don't expect that. We're reasonable people. But at the same time, we do expect that in the interest of transparency and freedom of information and all of that, that the ministers or those in authority, not just also the ministers, but even permanent secretaries and those who work in ministries are empowered to be able to provide the information. Because when the freedom of information legislation kicks in and the information commissioner is installed, that person, when information is requested from that person, based on how the law is structured, they are expected to get the level of cooperation that they should get from the PSs, the permanent secretaries, and those who work in the various departments to get the information in a timely manner to the request, not just to the journalist, but a regular citizen who goes and requests that information should be able to get that information in a timely manner. And we ensured as a media association, when we had the meeting with the Attorney General, one of our recommendations was to see to it that the openness of the legislation in terms of getting information back to people, that is not abused. Because what can happen is that a department or a ministry or a permanent secretary or whoever it is that does not want to provide that information can always delay the information inordinate delays and in a process in an effort to frustrate the process of providing information to the person who's requesting it. So we did make that point very clear to the Attorney General when we had that meeting with him some months back. So to go back to the subject at hand now, as it relates to and if you look at Nevis, you were talking about Nevis and the Premier. I don't mind having the entire cabinet there, and questions are being asked of the pertinent minister for the ministry that you need the question that you're really in the question on. But I would prefer, and I'm going back to what I said earlier, I would prefer having the opportunity to speak to that minister or those ministers in our time as opposed to at the press conference. But what tends to happen at the press conference is when you have all the ministers there, while all of them are there, and it's good to get them in one place and you'll be able to ask them the question. Sometimes you don't get to ask the question you want to ask because you have all the journalists asking questions, ministers responding. Sometimes they take a long time to respond to the question. And before you know it, you do 2 hours of a press conference and half of the questions you want to ask, you don't get to ask. So while I applaud that for the transparency aspect, I also think that I should be able to pick up the phone and call a minister and say, Minister, so and so and so and so, and what I would say too is that, and it does happen in the 2 previous administrations too, when there's some ministers, not all, but some ministers, when you would go to a function and you see them, you can pull them aside, and all the questions you wanted to ask that you didn't get to ask, you have an opportunity right there and then to press them and to try to get answers to those questions. But then again, that is occasional. You want that to be something more frequent where you can get the information when you need it. When they come to the press conferences, it should just be a matter of, 1 or 2 things that you didn't get to ask or things that the public want to know that they don't have the opportunity to ask because they're not seeing these ministers to ask them. You as a journalist now can represent the public and ask those questions. So, it's a balancing act. It's a case where, yes, the journalist has to do some more homework and some more groundwork, but at the same time, I also believe that the accessibility to get that information also outside of the press conference setting should also be there as well.
What you're saying there, from a journalist perspective, I understand your point. That is from a journalist perspective. And then you will then have to come to the general public.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to give it to you from a layman standpoint. I grew up in St. Paul, St. Kitts, and I went to the preschool in St. Paul's and the junior school there, right? And the first thing I learned from a teacher by the name of Teacher Dai, God bless her soul, she passed away. Mm-hmm. She explained to us at a very young age, down in Churchgut, about messages, how it's been delivered. And she lined up the entire class under a breadfruit tree. And she whispered in the one to the front ear with something. And that person was supposed to pass it on according everybody until he get back to the back of the line. And we learned that during that very tender age, that the message that we finally got to the back of the line was not what the teacher told the person up front, right? So though I appreciate journalists speaking to these ministers one-on-one and come and report their version or their understanding, since we have the press conferences where everybody is hearing in real time what they're saying, that is the time I want the question to ask, that nobody have to come and tell me what they say. I want them to say it, because I got some clips I'm going to be running this evening. I do not know if you're familiar with them. Mm-hmm. There's a clip where I'm going to use Nevis as an example. The former junior minister for health, Ms. Hazel Brandy Williams, she gave a budget report in 2021, and she spoke about the current unfinished, long overdue hospital wing, that it was estimated at a cost of 19 million to be completed in 24 months. It started in 2017, which means it should have been completed in 2019. Mm-hmm. And during that presentation, she said the cost was 14 million. And following that presentation, someone asked the Premier about the same budget address. And he said to them, You guys heard the junior minister spoke on it eloquently. Eloquently meaning he was satisfied with her presentation. Fast forward to this past January. From 2021, we are now in 2023, where the hospital wing should be completed. The new junior minister, Ms. Nisbet, make a budget report that it is now 8 million spent of the 19 million, right? And she have her receipts to show. And I heard these guys in the back cheering and carrying on, saying that she have her receipts. Let me see if I can find this clip just real quick for you, because I just want you to understand the point I am bringing. But in the essence, with all of those conversations they were having, the premier came back and said that the end result is all of them was wrong. All of that presentation that they made was wrong. So he'd come now and say 17 million. It is no longer, and we as citizens of the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, we really got to pay attention and hold these politicians' foot to the fire, because Brother Huey with us passing through, none of us going to be here forever. And we have to leave this place better than we met it. And I keep asking people this question. When we hear about slavery and what our foreparents had to go through, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this Brimstone Hill Fortress. You don't think that was built by itself?
No.
Many people died building that fortress that we're benefiting now. Could you imagine if you and I had to head those stones up that hill to build that fortress? Our foreparents did that. So if they did all of this work for us, why are we destroying? Why are we not leaving something for our kids? I think you have kids, right?
Yes, I do. Yes.
And I'm pretty sure you want the best for your kids. So just for a quick minute, let me just run through this really quick that you could understand where I'm coming from. Because I just want you journalists in St. Kitts Nevis to understand that we support you all. I can tell you, go back when the program is over and read the thread. You would see that the online viewership happy to see you this evening. They welcome you this evening. They think you're a big wig in the Federation and you're doing a good job. So I want to take it to the next level where you understand you might be residing in St. Kitts, but the Federation is St. Kitts and Nevis. Yes. So pay some attention to what is happening there. So stand by for this first clip.
Okay, yes.
All right.
Utilize this space, and so they have come back with a revised plan. Mr. President, my figures from the persons at finance as well as the project manager is showing us that the amount paid out to contractors and subcontractors so far amounted to $6.853 million. There is an additional amount of another $6.218 million remaining for the contractors and subcontractors. And this amount includes variation. Because remember I said earlier, I gave you what the initial plan was, and now we have come back with an almost, addition to 6 additions to the new building. And so indeed there will be variations. What I can say to you, Mr. President, and based on the figures that I've been given, we have now used $14.218 million out of the $19 million allocated for this project. It means then, Mr. President, that we are still under budget.
Okay, so that's the first clip for 2021. Right. Now, this clip is a follow-up conversation where I guess someone running a program such as myself or you would ask the Premier a question in regards to that. So take a listen.
Like, no secret that right now there is a hospital project going on, but we've seen that it's incomplete. And not only that it's incomplete, it is, you know, I think it's behind and it's definitely over budget. So we would like to know, well, what are some of the issues?
Correct one aspect of your IRA. The hospital is not over budget.
It's not over
It
budget.
is behind, but it's not over budget. And I think our junior Minister of Health spoke to that eloquently in the last budget debates in the House in December. She broke it down. She explained what the budget was and how much has been spent thus far.
Okay,
so at this point, it is not over budget.
Remind us at this point. Do you remember those figures?
I believe that the number that she spoke to was somewhere in the region of 15 million or thereabouts. And I think she said that some 13 million has been spent thus far. But she did speak publicly on it in the budget debate.
So technically,
yes.
15, 13 million, do we see it completing within budget? 2 million, you think?
Well, we will have to spend some extra money. Yes. Okay. But at this point, I'm saying at this point, it is incorrect to say that the hospital is over budget because we've not yet even exhausted the initial amount.
I take that back. I take that part back. But what are some of the issues where we see why it's behind then? Well, if we have already budgeted for it.
First of all, it seems to me that in the ongoing discussion that people forget that we had 2 years of COVID. And I know that it is not popular for people to talk about COVID because people see it as an excuse. But
now, that was Mr. Brantley, Premier Brantley, responding to someone who was questioning him about that junior minister, Hazel Brandy Williams. Now, since then, I know you're aware that we had elections on December 12th, 2022, and there's now a new junior minister in place. And at the recent budget presentation, I want you to hear what this junior minister presented. Stand by.
Completing the interior is of the highest priority to our administration. That is why $12 million, Madam President, would have been allocated in this budget to ensure its timely completion. And Madam President, some would have you believe that we've blown through the initial $19 million estimate with no hospital to show for it. As Minister Evelyn indicated, Madam President, we like facts on this side. As the young people say, we have our receipts. So, Madam President, to date, we have spent $8,342,443.76 out of the initial $19 million budgeted. We would have only spent $8,342,443.76 out of the initial $19 million budgeted. So when you hear talks of over budget, I want the House to have the official figures on record, not those imagined or otherwise, Madam President.
And I want you to be aware that the chanting you hear in the background is coming from the Premier, the Deputy Premier, the Minister of Education, and all of them who was there in the previous budget. And they knew what the previous budget was. And they agreed to what the previous budget was. But they're chanting the young lady presenting her budget knowing it's wrong. Now, I want you to listen to this other clip. Because I have my receipts, you know. She says she have hers, but I have the real receipts, you know. And this is why investigative journalism is important, because they seems to have a bad memory. They have amnesia, because these are facts coming out of the budget address. And Nevis.
Our new Minister of Health, she came and in her presentation, she would have sought to update the public on some expenditure at the hospital wing, the expansion project. And we recognize that there's been a bit of uncertainty created because she gave a number of, I think, somewhere just over $8 million. And the previous Minister of Health had come, I believe it was in 2021, and given a number which was closer to $14 million. So that's a significant difference in terms of how much has been spent. I have asked that that discrepancy be resolved. The information that has come now suggests that perhaps both figures were incorrect. And I will undertake that we will have a full number available to the public as soon as we can. And the reason that I do not have it today, Madam President, is because we have been advised that we have been affected adversely by the cyber attack that we had. And so some of the numbers, I'm told, they have to retrieve manually, and which has created a bit of a difficulty in us getting it for today, because I wanted to respond and clarify the situation today.
So, Brother Huey, I played 4 clips, and all of them are inconsistent because of the constant misleading governments that we have in St. Kitts and Nevis. As I said earlier, I am playing these clips just for you. I don't know if you have heard them, because when I play them here, the Attorney General said first time he's hearing them. But I am just trying to bring it to your attention that if you have not heard them, that these are some of this stuff. And I have reached out via this medium. I know Freedom FM, the big JL and his team, they are in the Federation and they know what's going on. And I'm not hearing them talking about these things. All of these are news items. These are big news. These are federal funds. The former Prime Minister said he sent in excess of 500 million across to Nevis. Money is budgeted from the federal funds to that hospital. That is not complete. As a matter of fact, before I play the other clip, the final clip, in December prior to the elections, a hospital that didn't have any tiling laid, any kind of interior work done to open the hospital. They paint the outside and give people the impression that the hospital was ready to open. And it's because of good people on the island of Nevis who went there and took pictures of the interior and sent them to me. I knew that the hospital will not be open no time soon. So as a result of that, I broke that story along with other media houses there and the Federation. So the Premier came back and said that he did his investigation and he came up with a figure. And I could tell you from my end, being into the hospital business, being into the construction business, with the amount of changes, every time you have to do a change order on any project, the price balloon, it elevates. It does not get less, it gets more. So these kind of games that has been played, you spoke about the Integrity in Public Life and the Freedom of Information Act and these things. I look forward to this mechanism because that is what we're gonna have to use to get to the bottom of these things. But if you've never been across to Nevis, I am gonna ask you officially this evening online to take a trip with your team across to Nevis. This program have no problem sponsoring your trip across to Nevis via Carib Express. Mr. Prince Mills, Mr. Hull, Verdell Hull, Captain Hull. All you got to do is tell them that DJ Morrishaw sent you and he asked that they give you a round trip. I want you and your team to visit the hospital wing at Alexandria Hospital and give your own views on it. I don't want somebody to come and tell you. As a matter of fact, send me a message when you're going, because I'll make sure there's people at Nevis that will pick you up and will make sure you get your breakfast, lunch, or dinner, whatever time you all spend there. You are a good journalist, and we're going to work with you that you can do your work. But I want you and your team. I am asking you, please, on behalf of the online viewership, on behalf of the people of Nevis, that SKN Newsline takes a trip across to Nevis and do their own investigative journalists. And we will pick up the tab for your team. All right, so stand by for the next clip.
Okay then.
The figures that have been provided. It was noted, and I think this is important, that the figures given to the Honorable Janelle Nisbet for purposes of a February 21st, 2023 presentation appeared to only represent funds paid to local contractors and did not include pre-construction expenses, consultations, etc. Efforts were made to retrieve the additional information. However, the data was deemed inaccessible due to the ransomware attack on the Nevis Island administration, which had taken place a few weeks earlier. The technical team therefore had to reconstruct the database on manual receipts dating back to 2016, when the preliminary work and the research started for this project. The task, I am advised, was extremely technical and time-consuming, and thus the process has only now been completed. I say that to explain the delay in coming back to the public, having given that assurance that we'd come back somewhere around the 22nd or 23rd of February. The full breakdown of all associated costs has now been done, and the total expenditure to date is $17,210,820.74. So the number to date.
You know, and these guys are so professional with their lives, right? That to send that message to make you, the journalists, or the nationals of St. Kitts Nevis who don't know better, to accept their reasoning. They go down to the sense. And this is what they've been doing for some time. I would say this to you, Brother Huey, and I'll give you the opportunity to, if you want to hang on, you could hang on, or you could make your closing argument and move on, because like I said, I got to drop into some messages here for Dr. Joe coming out of the Nevis Island administration, folks on that end. But the situation is that when they're doing these things, they are not just hurting a few people. I know folks are focusing on the crime wave, the gun violence, the larceny, the knife, the raping and those stuff. All of those things are crime, violent crime in my view. But you know, the biggest crime that we have in the Federation, and nobody gone to jail for it as yet, or charged as yet, the millions of dollars that these politicians and their colleagues have raped our Federation, and no one have been held accountable for it as yet. I think it was at one of the press conferences when the Prime Minister spoke about the 20 million plus that gone missing from Development Bank. This should be of concern to anyone in the Federation. And when you have a hospital that was estimated to complete in 24 months, that started in 2017, and now it's 2023, and we are hearing reports like the COVID, some kind of hacking, is nonsense. I have been following these cases, and it appears as though, because I'm not hearing these questions during the press conferences, and I don't mean to put you on the hot seat, but as someone that I think is reasonable, I think that you should have concern about what is happening in Nevis as well, and what is happening in our beloved Federation, because at the end of the day, you have a home there, you have a family there, and you have make there your place. And I think a crime is a crime. It doesn't matter what color shirt you wear or what government you support. And by the way, you know, on August 5th of last year, I was in St. Kitts during the elections. And I had the opportunity to go through many of the constituency offices, and I see the amount of red shirts that was there, nobody taking them, the boxes was piled up. And by Saturday morning, when Dr. Joe was announced the Prime Minister, and after he was taken to government headquarters to see his office, and then we met at the Labour office on 4th Street. It looked like everybody was Labour then, because many people who inside the other colors, the orange and the white and the and whatever, everybody had on red. As a matter of fact, several people called me from Miami and New York and asked me when I'm coming back to bring them a Labour shirt, and I couldn't get one. They went scarce. So the whole place is Labour these days. So I laugh and I make it a joke, but it's not a joke. If it wasn't so serious, it would be a laughing matter. I know you guys have your hands full down there, and I will do my part whether far or near, and I will give you guys the respect and the courtesy, because I know what it's like to be a journalist in the Federation, and it's not easy. I know the attacks. I know when you ask these ministers certain questions, how they fire back and figure you do them wrong and try to make life hard for you. And guess what? If they come at you and make life hard for you, you know, we could make life hard for them too. Just let me know who they be.
Yeah.
If one of them attack you, just let me know who they be.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm gonna respond to the offer. And I'm gonna wrap up because I have another assignment I have to attend to later on.
No problem.
But yes, you're right. I think there are a lot of issues that the media can cover and should be covering, notwithstanding the challenges. There are, a lot of challenges which we can talk about another time. But in the midst of those challenges, and I guess you pointed out one as well, where you talk about if journalists ask certain questions, or we've seen it happen in the past where journalists are intimidated and are bullied, cyberbullied, and all these different things, and threatened in some instances because they dare to ask certain questions of the powers that be. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and I know that among other things are challenges. My good friends at Freedom FM, I know you say that, for example, they are aware of some of these things that you're talking about, but haven't been able to do anything on it. And one of the challenges and it's a real challenge. It's not an excuse really. It's just a challenge that exists, and we find ways to work around it. Is resources. Most media houses in St. Kitts and Nevis are not properly equipped with the resources, and I'm talking about manpower, to do the kind of work that we're supposed to do. Notwithstanding that, though, if we are aware of issues, and this is where I think the workaround comes in, and I could even speak from my perspective, being a media owner, when we are aware of an issue that needs attention, we try to put the limited resources we have to work on that issue until we get a final outcome, and then try to divert the resources elsewhere now to do what we have to do. So for example, we have a daily newscast that comes on online and on television at a certain time. We have to produce that newscast and have it ready by the time it's supposed to come on at 7 o'clock. If we had to take I have one reporter in my newsroom along with myself. If I take that reporter and put him to focus on doing this particular story, for example, that you raised, or any other story, it means then that I have to now make amends to ensure that by doing that, it does not affect my ability to put out a newscast, because I have advertisers to answer to, and they are expecting that the news is going to air at that time and their ad is going to air. I can't tell them, well, we were working on a story and so we couldn't do the news that day and we couldn't play the ad. That won't wash. So in other words, what I'm saying is we will, and I'm speaking from my perspective now, do what we need to do to get the stories told. So if I have to put in the extra hours to get the newscast out while I have another reporter, or the other way around, getting the story done while still trying to put out what you have to put out, then we will do it. I think a lot of times when journalists, it's two things really. When a media host or a journalist might miss a certain issue, for example, this issue you raise here is a really good issue that really should be looked into. And one of the reasons why, two reasons why: one is resources, and two, when you don't have, if you don't have persons, or for example, in your case now, you are giving me this story, this tip to say, well, no, this is something we should look into. We need more of that. I'm going to be straight up and tell you, we don't mind getting more of that. And you would not be the first person who would have pointed out certain things to me. Just last week, actually, I was at a government office waiting to do some business there. And someone came up to me and pointed out a story that we should begin looking into. And after the person started explaining themselves and telling us what the issue is, you know, I said, you know what? I think this is a legitimate issue that we really should look into. And so it's something that we have on our list of things to do. So I appreciate this. I appreciate the members, and we get it all the time. I get it all the time. People call me and say, well, you know, they have an issue or they have a story they want me to look into. Sometimes they'll just pop up at the office and say, well, you know, this is a story that, you know, is bothering them and they would like a journalist to take it up. So I appreciate that. And I am not one to shy away from that. Obviously, we can, again, going back to the point I was making, because of resources, it sometimes don't happen right away. But, and especially with investigative journalism takes time.
Yeah.
So it might not happen right away, but it will happen eventually, providing that.
I can say to you,
yes,
there are folks online are listening to you, accepting, they want to hear you accept the offer I made. They're saying,
oh, well,
that you
I've accepted the offer, you know. If I didn't make it clear enough, I accept the offer.
Okay.
I accept the offer. Even if it is not me, we as in SK Newsline, we accept the offer. So
okay, because the folks will have to contribute towards the expense. And they are prepared to do that. You understand? Your ticket has to be paid for, and you have to get your lunch or dinner, or whatever. So folks online that are saying they're waiting for you to accept, that is what the folks online are very
accept
active.
the offer. And that's the point I was making too. And that's why I guess it wasn't clear enough, but that's the point I was making, that whatever we have to do to get the story, to any story, not only this, but any other story, whatever we have to do, we will get it done. And no matter how long it takes, we will get it done. Because
there are several,
it is a matter of importance.
Not cutting you off, there are several stories over there. There's even another big one with the airport and some funds and whatever. But I do not want to drown you into too many things. I know what it takes to investigate.
Yeah, it takes time.
And it takes time. And the hospital issue is a burning issue, because you would have heard, there are many clips I can play for you, which I'm not going to drown you with tonight. But there's one where the former prime minister said is over 400 or 500 million that was sent over to Nevis. And basically the people are saying there's nothing to show for it. And I'm not here to beat up any particular politician. I am here to represent the people who cannot rep themselves in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis. And if the politicians does not do what they need to do, where the journalists in the federations drop short because I know what they have to deal with, I'll take the blows for them. So I will continue to present myself here and highlight these stuff. But I just want you to know that the online viewership are looking forward to your investigation and for you to come back and have a conversation with us, because
not a problem at all.
I know you're capable, and you're, from my view, a very not only talented but effective investigator and journalist.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And I like I said, I accept the offer. So we will certainly talk some more. Okay,
thank you, sir. And say hi to the wife for me, and kiss the babies and stuff, and continue to be the good citizen that you are. I know they like to tell us that we are foreigners and to stay out of the business, but I am in, and I am in to stay. So, Brother Andre, thanks for joining me.
Yes,
and
no
I'm going to dive straight into some other conversation here, because my good boys there at Tell Me. I do not know if you're familiar with a gentleman by the name of Carlisle Powell.
Yes.
A gentleman.
Mr. Powell knows me quite well too. So.
Okay. A gentleman by Kelvin Daly.
Yes, so too Mr. Daly as well.
There's a gentleman by the name of Tulu. Well,
I don't know if I know Tulu. Maybe
Tulu comes on with Tell Me on a Thursday. They'll be on tomorrow evening.
Okay.
I realized that there was some very interesting conversation between last Thursday and Saturday. So before I wrap up, I'm going to jump into those things, because the Prime Minister needs to pay attention. Because these advisors that they get sometimes, people advise you to their benefit. Like my good friend Sam Condor tell me one time, he's a professional. And I like to ask them, professional what? Because there's some professional bullshit artists out there. And they don't care about the countries, what they could benefit. And if you check the track record of some of them, bouncing from party to party and government to government, and they're not stable, and the people have not. And one of the things I'll tell you that is a concern, and maybe you could give me your view on that just before you leave, is that I said it to the Prime Minister before, and it seems to become another hot topic. The Prime Minister said at his opening, when he was sworn in, that he's the Prime Minister for everyone. And the Nevisions, some of the Nevisions are saying that the Prime Minister has been to every school and sent kits. He have traveled in the diaspora and had town hall meetings and all of this stuff. But with the love that he have for Nevis and all, he said he's the Prime Minister for all. He's yet to have a town hall meeting in Nevis so the people can see him. And there's a call for that. So again, that's another tip I can throw at you as a journalist. It is not that they're cursing the party, cursing the Prime Minister. I think they're just venting that, listen, Mr. Prime Minister, you travel to New York, you travel to Trinidad, you travel to Washington, D.C., Nevis is 2 miles across the waters. We want to see you. Simple, you know. Okay. And I think it's a reasonable response, reasonable request. Yes. So I'm going to go down the road, and if you have to leave, I understand what that is the road.
Yes, I have to run.
Yeah,
but
that's
it was
the
a
road
pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
Man, it was fun. I'm happy that you took the time this evening and continue doing the good work.
Thank you. All right. All the best.
All right. Okay, folks, that was the man, brother Andrew Huey, by way of Jamaica, there in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, SKL Newsline, doing their thing, trying to keep the people alive and informed there from a journalistic perspective. I'm DJ Morrishaw. I'm coming to you this evening, live and direct from Christian Stetson Croy. Thank to my uncle Eustace Hutchinson for accommodating me with his internet here so that I can come to you. I'll be heading back across to St. Thomas shortly and back across to the New York area before I make my way down to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, God willing. So I want to just say good evening to Sister Cora Bennett, Sister Ann Farrell Smith, Gwyneth Morrishaw, Beverly Morrishaw, all you good folks that continue to support this program and come online weekly. Sister Abigail Archibald, how are you doing? How about my girl there, Sister Hazel Claxton? Everything good with you? Sister Naomi Ward, Sister Joseph Buchanan, Ivy Carty, how are you guys doing? How about Rosita Pontine, Iona Mason, Iona Mitchum, Brother Jerry Carty there in the UK area, Sister Jennifer, how about Sylvia and Clive? I want to big up my cousin there also in St. Croix. Sister Gloria, it was nice seeing you earlier today in the church because I was busy doing my Palbearer's duty. I was not able to come across and have a chit chat with you or get a picture taken, but it was nice seeing you from a distance. I want to big up my sister there. Good evening to Sister Lee Brown, Pastor Brown, how are you doing there? And Nevis. Not forgetting my boy Astro. I wonder how my brother Astro is doing. I know you're getting ready for the Culturama. I hope all is well with you, my brother. I also want to big up my brother there, Ivor Henry, across there in the Fort Lauderdale area. I want to big up my cousin there in the Canada area, the man Everson Harris. How are you doing? How about Captain DeGuaya? The man there, Thaddeus Depossois. I just want to make sure you guys are okay. So we're going to dive into some conversation coming out of the Nevis end. We're going to touch down on some conversation that took place on the Tell Me program with Brother Carlisle Powell, the man there, Brother Kelvin Daly, and Tulu. Now, I have to play these clips because I think it's important that the Prime Minister and everyone out there understand that you have to give legs to things that have some merit. Not that I am cursing the government or these guys are cursing the government, but they're making a simple request and they might be passionate about what they're saying. And everybody bring themselves across differently. So in my own style, I want to say, take a listen. And also, before you take a listen, I want to say a belated happy birthday to Sister the Honorable Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge. I understand you make birthday and on the weekend there. So I hope you enjoy your birthday, Sister Patricia Bartlett. The man who I also about Sister Delikins Basso. I understand you are now a grandmother. Congratulations to you and your daughter. And how about JD Keynes? So this first clip is coming from the Tell Me program. Stand by.
I saw an invitation which came out for a diaspora meeting with Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew. And this meeting is taking place in Washington. April 18th? But whatever the date is, this is a diaspora meeting being held by Prime Minister Terence Drew of St. Kitts and Nevis. And when I saw it, I said this is a magnificent gesture by the Prime Minister. Absolutely wonderful. And then I reflected that the Prime Minister has been to every single school in St. Kitts. All the schools in St. Kitts. He has not visited one damn school in Nevis. Prime Minister Terence Drew, this is not his first diaspora meeting. It is at least his second, possibly his third. But he has not been to Nevis to have one single town hall meeting. He's the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. I mean, forget about all the niceties and so on and so on. The elections were in August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, 8 months gone. The Prime Minister is keeping meetings all overseas with diaspora people. The Nevis people now in the Federation. I mean, when I saw that, I keep wondering, when is the Prime Minister going to come to Nevis to have a town hall meeting? Or when is he going to stay in the comfort of his home in St. Kitts and have a Zoom meeting? And said, Nevis people, you're too close, so I'm going to meet you by Zoom. But at least I'm going to meet you. I mean, I prefer if you catch the boat, because he caught the boat and he came to Interprimary. He caught the boat and he went down by Sunshine. He caught the boat and he went to a private party. Well, Mr. Prime Minister, what we got to do? We got to keep a party. Janice keep a party on Monday and invite the Prime Minister. See if he come. What do we have to do to tell the Prime Minister that there's a federal office on Government Road which was established by Dr. Denzel Llewellyn Douglas, and that it would be nice for him to come to Nevis to meet the people of Nevis? Or are we going to have to wait until the next election? And then he say, okay, all right, election coming up, so I'm going to come to Nevis to have a meeting with the people of Nevis? As I said to you, he has visited, based on the news, every single school in St. Kitts. All, not just the schools in his constituency, but all the schools in Nevis. That is what the news say. If I'm being misled, I'm being misled by the news. He has not visited one school in Nevis. Neither the high school in Gingerland, the one in town, or the sixth farm. None of the primary schools. None of the private schools. But he has visited every single school in St. Kitts. Is he the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis or just St. Kitts?
He is the Premier of St. Kitts. I keep telling her already, nobody in Nevis voted for Dr. Drew. He's the Premier of St. Kitts. The people of St. Kitts elected him to represent their constituency, and his party, of course, he being the leader of the party, became the Prime Minister. So his obligation is not to the electorate of Nevis. Nobody in Nevis voted for him. I keep telling you already, you know, he's the Prime Minister in name only, in title only, but in action, he's not the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, because clearly his action shows differently. I've been telling people so, and I get a lot of abuse, a lot of cussing from NRP people in particular, who tend to be more Labour than NRP. I've been saying it from the inception, that something is amiss with this new government here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I've been saying it.
Well, you're technically right.
I'm
You're
technically
technically
right.
correct.
The fact remains, when I studied notice, I was just like Carla. I was very upset. I was very, very upset because I see him posing at private birthday parties on Nevis. There are so many important issues to discuss. There are issues regarding the security matter at the airport, Evans International Airport. There are situations concerning the openness of our borders, our coastline. We have no Coast Guard posted in Nevis. There are issues, of course, of health, and the fact that when the dialysis machines go down in St. Kitts, of course, the divisions get the worst of it. I mean, there are serious issues of furthering education, joint policies on agriculture. I mean, we have to now understand that the government of St. Kitts is a government of St. Kitts. It is tragic that we have to come to this conclusion, but it is what it is. It is what it is.
Well, this is the reality.
And then, if you go to a diaspora meeting, how many individuals will go to this diaspora meeting? How many? I can guarantee you, 99% of the time, our persons from St. Kitts will go to diaspora meetings.
We have police in Nevis. The Prime Minister met with police in St. Kitts. So the police in Nevis don't count?
They don't
Our
count
couple go down to the
because
meetings in St. Kitts.
Because the high command, the extremely high command, is on St. Kitts.
But there are police in Nevis.
There are police in Nevis.
He should come to meet with them.
There are nurses in Nevis. There are teachers in Nevis.
Defense Force officers in Nevis.
Defense Force officers in Nevis. And you wonder, I mean, I remember as a small boy, and you heard part of it in the eulogy yesterday for Mr. Swanston, where soldiers, as reported by Mr. Parry, surrounded Swanston home.
True.
I remember the days when Honorable Bratcher used to come to Nevis regularly, and the police and the Coast Guard cut
In his military uniform.
But just last year, the Powell woman.
Good evening, caller.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm calling early, but I'm following your discussion that you're having presently. One of the things I've noticed, and I question it if you guys can help me, he collects the money on behalf of Nevis. Have you guys noticed that?
Especially from the Taiwanese.
Hand over the check.
Yeah.
He's there collecting it. So why doesn't he bring over the check in Nevis and have the meeting then? And explain to the division why is he collecting the money for Nevis when the Premier is standing there? I would like to know.
You're stepping on toes, my good friend.
Hello?
I said you're stepping on toes.
I'm stepping on toes?
You're stepping on toes.
Okay, well, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to squash anybody's toes. But it just looks strange to me. I don't know about you guys.
So, I have a theory.
Why I can understand if he's accepting the check on behalf of the Premier, if the Premier is not here or if he's off island. But if the Premier is there, then why?
I'll give you my theory.
What is it really?
Let me give you my theory. My theory is this, that the Taiwanese would have given the Nevis Island administration $167,000 for a dialysis unit. That is since about 2018. Up to this moment, we haven't heard anything about dialysis unit. There is no move afoot to deal with this. And I'm saying that Taiwanese is saying that this gentleman cannot be trusted with our money. And so we're going to pass it through the Prime Minister, and any accounting that we would require, we will deal with the Prime Minister with that. We cannot deal with this guy. That is just my theory.
I take your point. It's sad, though, because the Taiwanese have had a very long-standing relationship with Nevis. What about the Malcolm Gishard Park, which they've donated to? And I think this is the second check now that has been handed over, but it went to the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and not to the Premier.
But caller,
I guess we'll understand it better by and by.
All right. Well,
have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, you see, what is happening now, and the bigger picture. I mean, the incident that Tulu just indicated happened, and perhaps that plays into the narrative. But the bigger picture is this. We have gone backwards, in our independence. We have gone backwards in our self-determination. By that I mean, the days when we had to go to St. Kitts to do everything, get a certificate of birth, to everything. You go to the dentist, you go to the hospital. What is being reflected now is a regression, a return to where everything now, you have to go to St. Kitts. Look at what's happening now. MSR has left and gone to St. Kitts. You want employment? To follow MSR? Go ahead. All the hotel developments are on St. Kitts. You want to work? Go to the hotels on St. Kitts to find work. You want first-class hospital care? You want dialysis? You have to go SK. You want to leave the Federation? You have to go to SKRLB. What are we saying?
You want to sue, you got to sue the
You
Attorney
got to
General.
sue the Attorney General. What are we really saying? What is the big picture here? We have regressed. And so the Prime Minister maybe feel that he has no obligation, or perhaps he doesn't want to come to Nevis to show any embarrassment to the Premier of Nevis that he's on his island giving him a check from retirees. I don't know what it is. But clearly, there has been a regression where everything now revolves around Bastille. That is where we are at.
Even so, Dr. Daly, the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister of St. Christopher and Nevis. The Prime Minister is meeting with nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis as far away as Washington. Got to catch a jet to go to Washington. He is in Nevis on a fairly regular basis. He came to Nevis to a private birthday party. Where, good God, come to Nevis on an official visit and meet with Nevisians.
Can't do it.
And residents. Why you can't do it?
Tell
me why you can't do
There
it.
are some embarrassing questions you will have to answer. One of the embarrassing questions is, of course, I mean, how long now do we have, you heard about this pursuit of this marriage by marriage thing? Not all of a sudden it dropped out in the news. Where is that? We have heard...
And Nevis was involved in a big way.
Exactly. We heard about the hush puppy matter, that they have now pursued it. We have not heard anything from that. We on Nevis want to know about the accountability for the millions sent to Nevis. We want to assurance from the Prime Minister that there will be a forensic audit of the government's accounts to see where all that money went. We want to know in the future what will be the constraints or the regulations regarding any money coming from St. Kitts from CBI to the projects on Nevis. These are the questions that must be asked. What are the bilateral arrangements for agricultural development for St. Kitts and Nevis? Right, okay, we understand it's a separate, we have separate ministries of agriculture, but we speak about food sovereignty. We speak about food and nutrition security. Well, it is bigger than Nevis by itself, and it's bigger than St. Kitts by itself. You need comprehensive policies to deal with these matters of food sovereignty and food security. You can't be talking about we can grow potatoes in Nevis and don't consider what's happening on St. Kitts. We can't talk about expanding fishing on Nevis and not in St. Kitts. It is ridiculous. And so these are the questions as a Prime Minister. I mean, you've gone to Cabinet, you've gone to Parliament, and you've passed some very important pieces of legislation, including the anti-corruption legislation. Does that include auditing of Nevis? Does that include oversight of Nevis?
No.
These are the kind of questions he would have to answer. You understand? And so it is maybe tricky for him to come here and be faced with those kind of questions on Nevis, where the Prime Minister seems to have now built a new friendship with the primary agent who tried to destroy Labour. Don't forget that. This man bragged about destroying Labour in 2015. The Honourable Dr. Douglas described him perfectly as an arrogant, condescending man. And here we have a Prime Minister playing footsie with this Premier of Nevis. And you have to understand why is this going on. Why is he not coming to Nevis? Because he has developed a kind of entanglement with our Premier and does not want to cause any embarrassment for his newfound friend. That is my theory.
Or he do not
Daily,
want to be embarrassed by the premier. Remember, we have a premier who said to all the prime ministers in St. Kitts, barring Simmons, keep out of Nevis.
Well, he wasn't interested in politics during the Simmons time.
Everybody else.
Yeah, but let's back off a little bit, because we are forgetting two important things that the Prime Minister would have to address when it comes to Nevis. The whole question of the electoral reform and the electoral office.
That's right.
Those are key issues that he would have to address. Somebody would ask him, why is it that you allowed the retired supervisor of elections to interfere in the Nevis elections?
Perfectly.
And it's a valid question. Why is it that you spoke about boxes and boxes of these illegitimate marriages, the sham marriages, some of these people who ended up on the voters list, and then you have not addressed the matter as it relates to Nevis? How is it that we have been building a hospital since 2017 with a whole ton of money out of St. Kitts, and there has been no accountability and the project can't finish? I mean, Mr. Prime Minister, when the news gets to you tonight, because they're going to call you and they're going to tell you that Carlisle Powell and the Tell Me crew say that you have been to meetings a foreign and you're not dance a yard, you got my number, so you could call me and I tell you the same thing. You've been in office for 8 months. You have not paid an official visit to Nevis to meet with the people of Nevis. It's time that you do that.
So, as I said earlier, these are commentary from the program Tell Me with the man Carlisle Powell, the man Kelvin Daly, and Pulu. Very interesting conversations. So I believe that these concerns coming from the Division N that deserve a little more feet, and I'm giving them that opportunity to address it this evening. The next matter with the Tell Me program was the CBI situation. So let's take a listen to the gentleman, Brother Carlisle Powell, the man Kelvin Daly, and Tulu again. This one, it's very interesting as well.
Have you heard anything about a new board of directors for CBI?
No, somebody sent something across here, so across my screen, but I ain't even paying that too much attention, because if I pay attention to that, you're gonna make me cuss again. Dr. Drew is like all the other prime ministers. When they came into office, remember CBI came up under PAM, PAM NRP. Every opposition said, we want to know how much money in the fund. And when Labour won in 95, up to now, Labour ain't tell us how much money in the fund. Unity came in, and Unity from the outside were cussing. We want to know, we want transparency, we're going to transfer it to the consolidated fund. Nothing. And up to now, we ain't know how much in the fund under Timothy. Timothy left, and he was replaced by Dr. Drew. Up to now, you ain't hear nothing about how much. So when people go tell me that there's a board for CBI, I don't care why you tell me. If you want to tell me anything about CBI, tell me how much money is in the fund. Because I firmly believe that the CBI funds, whatever they are, whether they are in the millions or billions, that the country sitting down and farming food with the money. You cannot tell me that they wanted to build a new pier and they went and borrowed money from Tom, Dick, and Harry to build a new pier in St. Kitts when they said they got about $3 billion in the CBI fund. They said that they now want to build a brand new hospital in St. Kitts and they want to go borrow $80 million to build a new hospital. What the hell are you doing with the CBI money? What has the CBI money done anything for education? They build, how they help to extend CFBC? How they help to build they said they're looking money to borrow 80-something million again for the Barcia Senior High School. And they're going to soon look money to borrow for CSS and GSS and the CBI got in $2 billion, $3 billion. What the money there for? For somebody to count and look at and smile and say we're going to thief some?
You show money inside there?
Yeah, you got to be money inside there. They're selling passports all the time.
But you see, there's such a thing as called foreign reserve. And
I know.
Countries boast about having foreign reserves. They would like to keep it at a level that is either close to GDP value or just below. And so it's a
Dr. Daly, how much you take out the other day when they give you 500? How much you take out? They scratch the surface.
The thing about it, it's a matter of full disclosure, actually. I don't know. Let's go back a little bit to 2015 till 2020, 2022 with the CBI. I mean, you had this government CCM had every opportunity. They controlled the balance of power from 2015 to 2020. You had leverage to find out exactly what was in the funds, and how much is being generated yearly to go and top up the fund, how the fund is being used. Every opportunity, nothing. You couldn't report to the people. After you're fired from the unity, you keep bawling and say nobody know how much in the fund. But you were there. You were there. You were an integral part of the government, and you don't know. Now you have a new horizon, a new government in place, as Carla indicated, that came in asking the same questions when they were in opposition. How much money is in the fund? Is it true? Is it 1 billion? Is it true? It's 2 billion? Which government, which bank has holding all its assets for the government? How is this money being divided? How much assets I have versus cash? All these questions are being asked. And now that the government now sits on that information, it's like a void, it's a big vacuum of information. Nobody seems to be able to talk about it. Like it's a big secret. The question must be asked. I tend to agree with the two. Exactly. Is there really that kind of money inside there? Given the commitments the government have now with these entitlement programs, the PAP, the STEP, the Pay for Peace program, between those three programs yearly, I'm guaranteeing you, right, at over $40–50 million is spent just to maintain those programs. Mm-hmm. You understand? So when you start expanding into, we're going to build a new hospital, we're going to build a new school, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. You wonder how now the liquidity of this CBI, and now to put a board on top of it. What is the function of the board? What is the real purpose of the board? Is it to give people employment, party functionaries? Is it something legitimate that they feel that the board is needed to guide process, policy? If that is the case, then coming to the public and say, listen, we are going to be forming a board on this matter. I saw some information. I can't really comment too deeply on it because I don't know if it's even true. Because something of this importance, you'd have thought, given all the press conferences the Prime Minister has had, or any of his functionaries have had, this is something that would have been first and foremost on the agenda.
So they never indicated they were...
Well, I've never heard anything.
Well, you're correct, I never heard it either.
So if this is indeed true, and I'm not saying it is true, I'm just somebody sent something across the screen, I read it, I don't know if it's true or not. If there's a board in place already, though, I would like to know who are the functionaries on the board, who are the chairman, what is the real function of this board? Something this important, a new board that has come into existence since CBI 20–30 years ago, and now you have a new board. Something that's important, Carl, should have come to the public.
For nearly 40 years.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you really believe that the Prime Minister knows exactly what is in this thing? This thing was...
You really asked the question?
We are hearing that...
He's the Minister of Finance.
The last administration ran amok of this program. They have it iron out, they find all the details. Remember in Nevis, we have a history in Nevis of not finding the data, finding the record. Is the record hiding? They're trying to dig it up to find it? Because for the life of me, I cannot understand that we had people in our government for 7 years, and you are right. They ran on this thing that they're going to make it known. They must know. They put it in consolidated fund and what's not. Transparency they ran on. And then when they got fired, they come out and say that we did not have a clue what happened to the funds. Only one person, according to them, knew. That one person left all the records, they clears for somebody to come in and your transition and everything is there for you to pick up on. I am not too sure.
That's not how it works, though.
Listen, I don't want it to continue like that, because here's my argument. Dr. Denzel Llewellyn Douglas, former Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, when he was the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, how much money was in the Treasury?
He said,
did you know during his term?
No.
Did you know during his term?
Mm-hmm.
You knew? You're a lucky man. When he left and Timothy started saying that no money there, Dr. Denzel Douglas came out with a figure.
Yeah.
900 million, almost $1 billion.
980 something.
Okay, almost $1 billion. But during the time he was in office,
no, he didn't say anything.
I wondered
No,
how much money was there.
that.
Nobody knew. So maybe that is Timothy Harris going to say how much in the fund, in the CBI fund.
How much he left?
How much he left?
He hasn't
Because the former Prime Minister Denzel Douglas never gave a figure when he was in office. When he left and he was challenged, people were making out that he did such a terrible job. He said, no, I left $980 million, whatever the number was. So maybe Timothy Harris is going to be the man who is going to tell us how much he left in the CBI fund.
Timothy is going to do the very same thing like what Denzel did.
He hasn't.
Listen to them.
He hasn't.
All the years coming up.
He hasn't.
Simmons didn't tell us, so why I need to tell you?
No, during Simmons' time, there wasn't no set of money in the CBI fund.
We knows that, but they have this record is saying, and this is what's going here. Simmons didn't do it, so why do you want Labour to do it?
Because
Unity didn't do it,
because
so
you promised to do it.
You promised.
You promised to do
an
it.
accountable government. You promised good governance agenda.
Mm-hmm.
What's better than good governance than transparency and accountability?
I'm not going to tell you the truth.
All right. So I don't think Dr. Harris will say anything.
No, he doesn't say nothing.
All right. He left money there. The funny thing, when Dr. Drew and his cabinet came in, one of the first conversations they said was that the country was broke, and they had to quickly walk that back to say, well, they're speaking about recurrent revenue was less than expenditure. What kind of stopped them from making a fool of themselves is the fact that there was money in the treasury. There was money not in the treasury, CBI money, right? So they had to now quickly walk back and say, yes, we have money. It's just that we spent more from recurrent, meaning taxes, those kind of things, than we collected and than we spent. All right. So that is where the issue is. How much money is recurrent revenue? And the strange thing is, I've been following the Sinkit's budget presentations for the last year. I look at their budget documents. They list CBI as recurrent revenue, not Nevis. They list CBI receipts as recurrent revenue, which is a very strange thing. They list it as that. You look at the estimates, you see, they list it as recurrent revenue. But they're not going to give you the total accumulated funds in the CBI, which is the last step in full full accountability, full transparency.
Talking about
Yes, folks, that is the Tell Me program there with Carl Powell and Kelvin Daly, the man Tulu, having a conversation about what's happening in the Federation there, the deal that Nevis is getting that they should not be getting and what they're expecting. I'm going to drop a final clip from that Tell Me program last Thursday, and then I'm going to deal with the On Point program on Saturday, and that will be the end of the program for this evening. Folks, going in a bit overtime. I was hoping I did not have to extend it into overtime, but I had to go there for a few minutes to wrap up the program. So I hope my uncle is not there waiting to get access to his living room, as I have it occupied for about 2 hours now. So I'm going to run for about another 20 minutes to wrap up what I'm doing, because I don't want to inconvenience him too much. But we're going to drop this clip here from the Tell Me program. And by the way, as I've been saying weekly, you folks has been asking and begging me to go YouTube. With the weight that I'm carrying, I'm not able to carry YouTube and Facebook simultaneously at this time. My engineers are working on that project, but in the meantime, we're going to transfer to YouTube and feature Facebook in the coming weeks. I was going to do that this evening, but because I'm here in St. Croix and don't have the technical expertise around me in the event I run into problem, I decided to go Facebook Live this evening. So again, I am asking you online viewers to please go onto YouTube, find DJ Morrishaw, subscribe, smash that bell so that when I come live, you get your notification, you don't miss anything, because over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be coming with some heavy hitters. We'll be interviewing the Prime Minister and police commissioners and party leaders in Nevis and St. Kitts and around the regional area. So I don't want you to miss anything. Log on to YouTube, find DJ Morrishaw, subscribe, and hit that bell, and we're going to be okay. I want to big up my boy there, brother Elvin Ellie, very hard working technician there with me at the moment. Great job. Brother Alvin Brown as well, and brother Kenrick Williams there, my nephew, brother Glenville, Lawrence, brother Ike, you know, a great team of folks. I've got a team of 12 working with me, and we're trying to get things going for what you guys asked for. We are doing our best. Again, I want to big up the man, brother Andrew Huey, for joining me this evening, and had a very lovely chat. So stand by for the final clip from the Tell Me program on last Thursday evening.
Okay, gentlemen, it's 8:45, and I want to move on to something else, because a lot of things got me a little upset tonight. So before we move completely on, Dr. Drew, I want fair share in visits. You, Mark McNice of fair share, you give him a portion of money, and every month you sign the check and send over money. If Mark is telling you that he's your best friend and you must keep out of Nevis, the people in Nevis, you owe them a visit. So get the Nevis people fair share in visits. And you see, the beautiful thing about it, one of my friends don't send me a message and tell me, leave Dr. Drew alone. Me not trouble Dr. Drew, me trouble the Prime Minister. And when the show done, guess what? I go into number 48. I go over Prospect, where I got a little place over there where I put up. So, and me not got to tell nobody could call me tomorrow and say, listen, I want you to resign from this board. Me not depend nobody board. The only board I just go up and is a domino board. Me not put nobody board. So me could open me mouth and bang me mouth and say what me want to say. Okay, let's move on to another vexing issue. Water. Last week, we had rain for 24 hours.
36 hours.
36 hours. That is even more rain. And steady, lovely rain. Not hard rain, everything run off and stop. 36 hours worth of rain. 12 hours after the rain finished, we got a notice to say that they're rationing water. And this water rationing is all over the island. Somebody called me to ask me, Powell, your water gone? And I had to say to them, hey, listen, I don't know when water go or come, because when I build a little place over there in Prospect, I put it in a decent system. So, and I put it in a pump and a tank. So I don't really know when the water go, except I hear the pump cutting in. But when I looked at the notice, it says that, and my area is in the affected areas, almost the whole island, from 9 o'clock in the night until 5 o'clock in the morning, no water. None. This is after the government led by Mark Brantley promised donkey years ago that they had $10 million to drill 3 new wells. But look at what these worthless people did. They had a program which, when NRP left office in 2013, a Caribbean Development Bank program for $30 million, was already on the way. All the negotiations had been completed. Material, including trucks, had already started arriving at Nevis. The project was outlined. All they had to do was complete the project. And I think they were to complete the project in 18 months. The 18 months for CCM finished last year, 2022. From 2013, a project that was supposed to be completed in it had already started, so it was going to finish close to the end of 2015. Finally finished in 2022. And these people, that was in terms of relaying pipes and so on, putting up new reservoirs and so on, a couple new pumps. And these people build reservoirs. Some of them, what they say, 300,000 gallons. And ain't looked for no new water. Didn't drill a single new well. So now that the people of Nevis are bawling out for water, and somebody called me and said, Lord, Powell, I feel so bad. I come home late and I can't get a bath. Me start to bawl. Ball.
You cry?
I cry. Because them a ball. What they want me to do? Me ball with them. Because the NRP gave them water 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And when it was a leap year, we had water on the extra day. And the people of Nevis, through spite and bad mind, voted out the NRP out of office. They had no issues with water. My late Uncle Vance didn't have water for 15 minutes a morning, and he sent out a notice, oh, me not gonna water for 15 minutes. Well, good God. You ain't got no water from 9 o'clock at night to 5 o'clock a morning. And are you a call me a ball?
He did not just say that he didn't have water, no. He said he was angry because he wanted a shower and the water was running.
For 15 minutes. For 15 minutes.
To fix a line that was broken. So it was a fact that you had a broken line.
And for 8 hours at night, then I got no water. I tell you, somebody called me a ball. And when me catch myself, me a ball too, you know. Because me don't know what they want me to do. We gave them water and they say we don't want the government, are you too good? And so you're not gonna water now. Boy, so if I call me a ball, me come ball to it. I better call me video so I say really a ball in truth.
Yeah, man, that's those guys there at Nevis, the man at Carlisle Powell, the man Kelvin Daly and Tulu. That's on the Tell Me program. Like I said, we're gonna go into the end point now for Saturday. We got about 4 clips from that program that I'm gonna be dropping for you. Sensitize the Prime Minister and his cabinet and the people at home and abroad to let them know what is really taking place at Nevis from the Nevisians' perspective. This is coming from the Nevisians. And DJ Morrishaw understand the crime, right? And this is why I'm giving it legs. I cannot speak by myself. This fight have to be all hands on deck, whether you're home or abroad. The reality, that is what's happening. The struggle is real. This is no fabrication and no making up like the baby Brantley down there, just looking for a pacifier from the Prime Minister, you know. These are real feelings coming from the division, so I have to pay that. Like I said before, this program is going to be transformed into the YouTube channel, so please log on to YouTube and just subscribe, smash that bell, and let's get it going so that we can keep you informed and keep things going. Now we go on to Tell Me from last Saturday, and this one, this was very interesting, so take a listen to the man. Now, this is a conversation between Brother Kelvin Daly and Tulu. That was joined later by the man Hensley Daniel. So take a listen. Sister, here's Claxton, how are you doing? I hope that you're online and getting all your information, because we got to really cry for Nevis. They're crying for Haiti, they're crying for Africa, they're crying for every place else, but they're not crying for their own people at home. This is a problem we have. We Kittitian and divisions, we take care of the foreigners that coming in there better than we take care of our own people. All I can say to you, the Honorable Dr. Terence Joe, from JefroyMorrishaw perspective, I am not a paid advisor, but if I were to advise you, it's too late now, because you should have set up that town hall meeting, that meet and greet meeting within the first 100 days of your administration and Nevis, and take your ministers of cabinet over there to mingle with the folks. I know I had you on this program. I made a suggestion to you some weeks back, and you said you're taking it under advisement. Well, PM Drew, I will be in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis between the 17th, from the 17th of June until around sometime in July. If you cannot make the plans on your own to go across to Nevis, I'll be happy to accommodate you. I'll be happy to set up things over on that end for you. I am pretty sure that if Baby Brantley don't want you over there, the leader of the NRP and the only minister in good standing in the NIA from the opposition, which is Honorable Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, I can assure you that she will put things in place so that you and your ministers of cabinet ministers can come across to Nevis and have a good day. As a matter of fact, my team, the JefroyMorrishaw Sports Club, the cricket and domino team, will be in the Federation from the 17th of June to July 1st. And Sister Janice Daniel Hodge has assured me that she will be putting a Father's Day event in place on the 18th of June. So we should be going across to Nevis on the 18th of June, hosted by Sister Janice Daniel Hodge and her team. So if you want to use that day, Dr. Joe, as an icebreaker, you and your team are welcome to join the JefroyMorrishaw Sports Club over on Nevis on the 18th of June. You know, we're gonna do a little tour of the island, and we're going to hang out with my boy Carbo, get some nice goat water and fish there. And Sister Janice Daniel Hodge is putting something in place where we could play a few domino games and meet and greet the people of Nevis. Not just the politicians, but the people of Nevis. All are welcome to come and meet JefroyMorrishaw in person and his team from North America. So it's an open invitation to all Kittitian and Nevisan to join us across there. Boats are running, and I'm pretty sure if you guys having an issue getting transportation across to Nevis, my good friend there, Brother Mills, Captain Mills and Brother Hull, will be happy to provide service via the Carib Express ferry. I know Brother Mills have always taken care of my needs whenever I have to run across to Nevis. So folks, we're gonna drop here now 4 clips from the On Point program last Saturday. Stand by.
But just last year, the Powell woman was on Fest, wasn't she? They got more artists. They got more artists over there. The question is, they got more artists over there? And this guy, O.J. Watley, responded, Chris, ain't shit over in Nevis, but beautiful ladies and donkeys. You hear me? This is what a Kittitian wrote about his fellow countrymen in Nevis. Ain't shit over in Nevis, but beautiful ladies and donkeys. This is where the conversation must be. Not unknowing mission of an artist who was left out and who was brought in and for what price. We have a crisis of trust in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. That is what the problem is. Huh? But this post is what brought it forward. And it goes to a deeper crisis between the two islands. A crisis of trust. All right? This is what Compare that to what they said. Denzel Lloyd Douglas. Respect is earned. Trust is gained. It can take months to gain trust, but minutes to lose it.
True.
Loyalty must be returned.
And I am here contemplating as you're talking, I'm saying, since you're up with Douglas, that I believed, and I've settled it in my mind, that the relationship in Nevis and St. Kitts with Denzel Douglas as the Prime Minister and Joseph Parry as the Premier would have been a relationship that was really trying to and had made a little dent in bringing the people of St. Kitts and Nevis together. And perhaps before that, Denzel tried, because when he decided that we're going to put this federal office in Nevis, that is what he said was in his mind, and that is what Malcolm Gishard supported and welcomed. But by the time he got into Nevis, it was a totally different story. The fact that Denzel didn't have to do it, but he would have asked NRP, Patrice in particular, to join him to form the government. And when you hear Joseph Parry said that he and Denzel Douglas would have a dialogue and discuss matters over the phone with a handshake, and whatever they said was done, the type of respect that was there. And while that was going on, we had a person like Mark Brantley criticizing and tearing down. And so we have gone backward, you're right, Dr. Daly, in our relationships. And what is troubling to me now in that the Premier of Nevis is now like a what? Like a snake in the grass, trying to cozy up under Dr. Drew and the federal government to give an impression that somehow he is supportive and he is in for bridging this gap and bringing St. Kitts and Nevis together. Absolutely, it's not going to happen. What if the gentleman put there about what over here are beautiful women and donkeys? While it's a little bit offensive to me, what has he done different to Eric? What has he done different to Vance, to Mark in saying that Dr. Bartlett could only communicate with animals?
So is that disrespect across the board?
It's disrespect across the road. Our people over here are disrespecting us and calling us down. So if he calls us down the very same way, I'm not saying that he's right. But I am more offended by what Eric said and what Mark said than what this individual right.
Okay, that's your opinion, of course. That's not mine.
No, that's only me.
All right. So there are three things that came out of that post for me. Three things. All right. The first, that we are truly a separate people who generally see things quite differently.
Absolutely.
All right. Second thing that came out for me, for the most part, Kittitians know very little about Nevis. We know more about St. Kitts than Kittitians know about Nevis.
You are correct.
I mean, very few Kittitians ever cross the channel to come visit Nevis. They prefer to go to New York first than to come to Nevis. All right?
Listen to the pundits. I don't want to cut you, but listen to the pundits. We had the fiasco in Nevis with the hospital and the airport. We talk about it. When pundits in St. Kitts are asked, what is your opinion upon this? What the response? We do not know. We do not have sufficient knowledge of what's taking place in Nevis politically. We in Nevis know everything that is taking place down there. So it says to me that they're not interested in what's taking place here, and if they're not promoting what is taking place in Nevis, how the Kittitians are going to know?
Okay, point. The third thing that that's come out of this thing for me is that for the most part, Kittitians have very little respect, going to what you're saying, for Nevisians, all right? Especially among a certain age group, very little respect for Nevisians, based on the commentary I'm seeing here, my own experience. They see Nevis as a backwater, as some place you go to die, no activity, nothing, right? And strangely enough, there's a view on St. Kitts. I shouldn't say strange enough, but interestingly enough, there's a counter view on St. Kitts. And this counter view was expressed by a gentleman what he called Prince A.U. Brown. And this is what he wrote. Maybe one day, the divisions that are always creating divisions between the people of Federation will admit they hate Kittitians.
Well, again, I am sorry that he put it broadly, but there is nobody who has done more to create division between the people of St. Kitts and Nevis than Mark Brantley. He only now finds himself as a bridge builder after he was fired and kicked out, and he find a pillow under Dr. Jew. But there's nobody has done more than that. So while he's put it broadly that all of us division, it's not all of us division. But in truth and in fact, we would have had the rivalry between the Bracha era. We would have made some stride to come together under the Simmons era. I thought we would have made some stride to come a little closer under the Douglas era. And all of that time in Nevis, starting with Vance Amry, continue with Mark Brantley, they did everything to undermine that relationship to the point where they says to us, watch them politicians in St. Kitts, keep away from them. To the point where Mark Brantley says to us, Nevis should not take part in federal election because no politicians in St. Kitts love the people of Nevis. To the point of the last election, just on the heel of the last election, Mark had to resurrect dead Bracha and something about bone in your rice and pepper in your soup to show to the people of Nevis, hey, those people in St. Kitts do not like you. This is what they're going to do to us. He is the greatest propagator of this at this time in our history. And so it is real. There are people in the CCM movement who are still of that mindset that Kittitians do not like Nevis. When you come to the revenue sharing mechanism, again you have the divide. Vance started with Vance Amry. Our money is not going to go to St. Kitts. St. Kitts is not supposed to spend our money. We came to the VAT sharing mechanism, the same thing they came back and resurrect. The revenue sharing was put together with NRP. The VAT mechanism was put together with NRP. And in every sense of the word, CCM destroyed. So the person has it partially correct. But don't put it broadly that all Nevisions are against the people of St. Kitts, and that is broadly.
The division, I find, is a political one, like you indicated. And it's based on an emotional connection between Kittitians and Nevisions. And let me put this more succinctly. Those of us who lived through the early part of our federation, 60s, 70s, going forward, we experienced what we thought was a type of racism. We call it ethnicism. All right? That everything that was old and decrepit came to Nevis, and then all things that went new went to St. Kitts.
True.
It caused a long-lasting division between the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. The last thing we needed was a person like Brantley who would create an even more division based on a political expediency. The people of Nevis and St. Kitts have no problem,
True.
The problems are being manufactured by politicians such as Brantley, who see themselves as the champions of Nevis when it suits them. But when it doesn't suit them, don't come over for culture armor. Don't pay your taxes, as a fair share part of it. Don't do this, don't do that. All right? So they've done a lot to foment what has now boiled over into open critiques of one against the other. But the war is between what Brantley is doing, not between us.
That is true.
I got more family in St. Kitts than in Nevis.
Me too.
Exactly.
Quite a bit there.
This post, though, what he has done, and like I say, I really don't care about the music festival. I had no intention of going. It means nothing to me. But what this underscored is a need for a broad conversation as to where we're going as a country.
Good evening, Carl.
Yes.
Good evening, gentlemen.
That was Brother Polo and Brother Kelvin Daly on Saturday, having a very interesting conversation. And again, these discussion needs some legs. And this is why I'm presenting them this evening to you, because I want the Prime Minister and his cabinet to understand that he said he's the Prime Minister for all. The people of Nevis are the people who can speak on behalf of the people of Nevis are speaking. And by extension, the JefroyMorrishaw believe in the one federation. So I'm giving it legs. You might not hear it from them. You're going to hear it from my end. And I'm not even giving an opinion this evening, because you guys know, when I start giving my opinion, traffic stop. So I speak softly first. And if nothing is done, you know, I'm capable of bringing down the house. So I'm just presenting the message from the people of Nevis this evening, and give it a couple of weeks to take hold. Because if the people of Nevis continue to be ignored by the federal cabinet or the federal government or the folks that has the authority to do different, then you're going to be hearing a different message coming from the JefroyMorrishaw experience. Stand by for clip number 2 coming from the On Point program.
By other persons on the post that says, and I want to read it, it's a kind of self-denial argument, I've coined it, a self-denial argument, which says, you put politics in everything. And that is a fallback when you don't have another response to a serious underlying something is wrong with the trust between Sinkers and Nevis. And if you're going to say, you put politics in everything, let me ask this question. Music festival is being funded by taxpayer dollars.
That is true.
This money was voted for in the parliament in December.
It's politics.
Right? It is politics.
It is politics.
So how can you now come and say, I put politics in everything? If you are having a public function with public resources, using public facilities, politics is in the heart of it. You can't escape it. And so to say I put politics in everything is showing a kind of immaturity, political immaturity, that you don't understand the word politics at all.
Well, let us look at politics here. When the music festival started under Dwyer Astafan, PAM and the CCM, and if my memory again serves me right, Mark Bantle in particular, was the more critical persons when this festival started, and they tear it down. The money could have done, and when things changed and Pam got into office, it was the best thing that happened to Nevis, St. Nevis. When Team Unity got into office, it became even better. Now that the Labour is in office, you have those now who wants to degrade and call down the Labour Party based on the same thing. So yes, there's politics in it. And politics must be in it because it was established from a political point of view to get revenue into the country during the downturn when the tourism season is basically at an end. And so we cannot separate the politics from it. But what I do not like is the hypocrisy that when one government is in, whatever decision they made, they are right. And then when a next government comes in and makes a decision or another decision, then everything is wrong. No government are going to do the very same thing the same way. And so therefore we have to respect those who are there and trust them to do what they're doing. Again, like you, I am not up with music festival. I have no interest. Whether you have one artist from Nevis or 20 from St. Kitts, it doesn't matter to me. I have no interest in it. But because we are having the discussion, we must face the reality of it. It is politics. It's a political thing that was established, and we're not going to get away from that. Until we get it out where you say they privatize it, and private people are operating it, and then even in that case, people are going to still find some way to put politics in it. Can't separate the two.
Well, So what have we learned from this post? And what we have learned a lot from this post, but how do we address the challenge of getting conditions and divisions, even on the political scene? I think the people themselves are fine. Most of the people are fine between St. Kitts and Nevis. But there's a faction, and it's a very dangerous faction, both on Nevis and on St. Kitts, and especially in political tribalism, that is causing or intend to cause more strife than we need to be causing. The question then is, how do we address these divisions? How do we restore trust, like Dr. Denzel Douglas said in his post? How do we get back that level of respect that we need to go forward as a country? Because if you're holding one side, that Nevisians hate Kittitians, and Kittitians are holding another side, that Nevisians hate them, then where do we go? What is it? Well, how do we overcome that challenge? You know, it needs leadership to do it. You need the federal government and the NIA to really stop and think before they open their mouth and create more problems that we need to that we as civilians have to deal with.
But that will not happen as long as there is an assistant government in Nevis.
But let me ask you something. If you were Dr. Drew and you read some of the comments on this post, what would be your first inclination to do?
Reach out to the people of Nevis.
Okay.
And not just reach out by going on a radio show and make a passing reference to Nevis. You reach out to Nevis like what Denzel Douglas used to do, even though that Mark Brantley, whether he's in government or in opposition, was highly critical of Denzel Douglas coming into Nevis. Your correspondent is very close to everything about it. I guess you do not want the same thing that happened to Douglas and what was said to Harris to be said about him. Let us take the call.
Yes, that is a lovely conversation there from Tulu and the man, Brother Daly. Well, you know, we always bring down the number 3 batsman. And once the 2 open batsmen knock off the shine off the ball, you know, the number 3 batsman start scoring runs behind the wicket. Backward point, cover, square drive, leg side, everything. So we're going to bring in my brother, the other man, Brother Henry Daniel, to spice up the things right about now.
A few things I'd like to say. One, I don't think we have done enough of this. There is strength in our differences. We don't need to be Kittitians, and Kittitians don't need to be Nevisians, but there is strength in the things in which we differ. And I remember taking part in a lot of the constitutional discussions, Professor Fiaggio and a set of other people. And you know, I have come away that we need a constitution that enforces consensus. So that if there is no consensus, and you were just making the point about agriculture, health, housing, education, since the resources are the resources of the two islands, we need that consensus. Also, I agree with, I think you were saying earlier, there is no problem between St. Kitts and Nevis. Look at the number of people going back and forth with the presence of the boats and so on. People are interacting, and I think we must never interfere with that. The difference is we're a bunch of politicians who, with oversized ego and nothing to do in Nevis, running Nevis for a number of years. The Constitution gives the Nevis Island government enormous power to go and develop the country. They haven't been doing it. And as a result, every time they fail, they're back to St. Kitts, back to St. Kitts. So a bunch of wishy-washy people in government, in Nevis, incompetent, can't find nothing to do, take resources. How much money have we said?
$500 million.
$500 million from St. Kitts. And then he said, don't ask us nothing because we are entitled. So every time you get these incompetent people in government, you begin to go back to you just mentioned it, emotional blackmail about secession. Remember the 10th of August 1998, CCM led by Vance said we must vote to secede from St. Kitts. But a few years after, he was going down to St. Kitts to get work. and remain working in St. Kitts all the years. And so what is required from me is that I think the last caller was mentioning it. There has to be a grouping of people who can rise above the petty things that I don't know if the politicians should take the lead. Well, they will have to be involved. But that is what is required, that there must be an admission that there is strength in our differences. We don't need to go around and say how we different from St. Kitts and how we leave it and so on. That's not necessary. But what I look at, look at the resources that we have made from the CBI. Have those resources been felt in Nevis? No. And is it simply because we are from Nevis, or it is because that we have an incompetent government that has not come to the fore with any projects? You look at all the projects in St. Kitts, Kittishan Hill, Park Hyatt, Christoph Harbour, a host of them. Where is the concomitant development in Nevis? So for me, this emotional blackmail with CCM must stop, because every time these incompetent people show up, why was the call for secession? The OECD was saying that we have to regulate our financial services sector. CCM says that Douglas trying to control our financial services sector, and we anchor a whole vote on secession. Emotion. What the Nevision must do, the Nevision must stop allowing himself to be carried on this emotional roller coaster by politicians who don't know what they're doing. And they must go to the polls and vote for people based on their performance, because every time CCM an election come, they say, oh, look at what happened. NRP is with Labour, but I am with PAN, so I am supposed to get elected. I think Dr. Douglas, I think you made mention of it earlier, Kel, either you or Tulu in the discussion. Dr. Douglas has said on more than one occasion that he and Mr. Perry decided, look, fellas, let's see if we could calm the waters. After the tumultuous period of 93 with all the 4-4 and all the bacchanal, these two men decided, let's work together. Who was preventing the process? Mark was opposed to the process. He don't want us to get together. And Nevis people must understand when politicians are trying to make sure that they don't benefit. But Dr. Douglas has said on more than one occasion, Kel, he has never written a document and tell Mr. Perry to sign. They meet, they discuss, and they operate as people who trust each other. I can speak to that. When we were building the Performing Arts Center, the CCM government take up the money that the Taiwanese gave and spent it on Grove Park, so they're doing some excavation work and all kind of foolishness around the country. Then we went and sat with Dr. Douglas and said, well, we really want to build this thing. First, we're going to redesign it to what it is now. And we were able to get the money to move the process. But I'm just telling you that this emotional blackmail must stop, because in the end, the losers are the people in St. Kitts and Nevis, both of them.
So this is a statement by Dr. Douglas. Respect is earned. Mm-hmm. Trust is gained. Of course. It can take months to gain trust, but minutes to lose it. Mm-hmm. Loyalty must be returned.
We had regularly joint cabinet meetings, and we discussed things and so on. I never went to any meeting with the Labour Party in government, and when we were in government, where there was any acrimony and any, hey, man, like, oh, that kind of thing. No, we were able to sit down as two different cabinets and two different objectives. And I make the point all the time. I was the health minister in Nevis, but I didn't think that Minister Rupert Hobart, who always reminded me, Kel, that Leonard Prentice was his uncle, and that all his family is from Rollins. And when I reached out to him, he said, man, of course, we had problems getting the medication to the people in Nevis. He said, man, of course, I wouldn't want people in Nevis to suffer. That is the kind of level you want to be able to reach. He says, look, I don't want people in Old Road so they get medicine, but not people in Gingerland. No, that's not good for us. And I'm just saying that a lot of it has to do with the trust and the perspective, because Dr. Douglas and Perry They had several meetings, and Everson Hall was railing against it. But next thing you know, he's an ambassador in the so Nevis people begin to check to see what these fellows are doing. Eh? They're using you. I like your definition, Kel. Emotional blackmail. Cut it out, because Parry said that, and then Douglas would speak at Parry's meetings. Parry would speak, and sometimes I would fill in if Parry couldn't go. And every time, Douglas showed the utmost respect, because I believe what happened, Kel. Douglas wanted to show people, all right, I am from the Labour Party that is responsible for a lot of the
blame
that for the underdevelopment of Nevis. But I think, to be fair to Dr. Douglas, he went out of his way to work with Parry, because he wanted to be the politician that cooled the tempers, and to some extent we did. But we have a buffoon who is a premier, and this buffoon now.
This is what the buffoon said.
This is a buffoon.
This is what the buffoon said regarding Music Fest. Well, this Music Fest lineup looked like no artist left back tired. To me, this needs 5 days and plenty formula. This is his contribution.
But also that is his level too. That is his level, because he doesn't rise to the level of serious business. What I'm trying to tell you is that I remember a critical meeting with the IMF over the fact that we were doing the road from Market Shop. And the IMF woman was saying that we must stop the road. Stop the road? What is this? And I remember Dr. Douglas and Mr. Parry saying, okay, gentlemen, we're going to meet privately. But you know what that privately means? That privately means that Douglas will never cause that level of embarrassment to Parry, so that he had to stop a road. We will meet privately on the matter. And then they were selling out the shares in Cable and Wireless. The government was divesting its shares. She agreed. Well, you know, I don't agree with those things. The IMF don't have no record to tell us what to do. But I'm an anti-IMF man. But I'm just telling you, these two fellows realize, boy, we're a small country. And bickering among us and fighting among us here doesn't help. So what we will do, we will work privately. I remember them saying, we're going to meet privately over that. So that Douglas provided the support when necessary, and Parry likewise. So that all along we were going.
So, but the danger now is that the danger for me in my mind is that, given what you have said, and you were there as a parliamentarian, as a representative for St. John's, when the relationship between Dr. Douglas and our premier, Mr. Parry, was blossoming. And so you now see the dichotomy between what happened then and what is happening now.
Okay.
Right? And that is a dangerous situation for most of us here.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a complete difference, a 180.
Yeah. But you know what is crucial is idea? What Hazel just explained about this relationship. The CCM, and in particular Mark Brantley, was undermining and cutting through and doing his best to create division between that relationship the same way.
But that's what I'm saying to you. And during that time, you must imagine that both Dr. Douglas and Parry had to steel themselves. Had the will of steel.
Why do you think Dr. Douglas is so very popular in Nevis?
He's a swinging star. I mean, just to see him at the funeral for Mr. Swanson, and you see what he said? While Swanston was the minister in the government in St. Kitts, Swanston decided that he was going to fix some roads in Sadlers and St. Paul's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course the rest of the PAM government was saying, no. And you know Swanston said, well, what happened? No, he said what happened. Sadlers and St. Paul's part in St. Kitts.
Yes.
But we had the broader perspective. And in relation to Swanston would tell me, man, I meet Sam and I meet Douglas and I meet Simmons. He had a relationship with everybody. And I think on the post there and them same things, I think it's Zulu just said on a post, don't worry, the NRP is the party that has worked with both of the parties in St. Kitts.
True.
Because we come from a different perspective. Why are we doing this? We want benefits for the people in Nevis. You see, unlike, let's look very quickly, Ken. Unlike, let's even look from 1980 to 83, before we even went to independence. In the 3 years of going between St. Kitts and Nevis, that time they didn't have the kind of power with the NIA. But look what happened. We get the 6 farm built in 7 months and children ready to go. I mean, my wife said to me that I have to go to see Mr. Swanston's funeral because I had to go to 6 farm in St. Kitts. But my son, our son, was able to go to 6 farm in Nevis. And I mean, so, Kel, here the problem. What are the benefits or the results of the 7-year relationship with Mark in Team Unity?
Zero.
Compared to us, we bring you the 4 seasons, Land and Housing Corporation, 6 farm, a ton of things, all the road and water. We fix all the road and water problem, you know, especially water. And now I see you put up a post the other day, say water off.
Water off from 9 to 5.
My head had a patch in there where no hair could go, you know, because of the load you had to carry on your head. It looked to me as if this backward government is saying to us, as if to say, water going to be off, so take that. Mind you, this is, Kel, if tomorrow morning I am prepared to go with a march, we must have water in Nevis. This is foolishness. We just lay Swanston to rest. He spent all his years trying to do that. So Simeon Daniel, Ivor Stevens, Victor J. Martin, Parry, all of them working in the government. And I'm saying, for he to come in 2023, and he didn't say water going to be off until like.
But if you can't even manage water,
where you going as
water,
a government?
That's a water is life, and you can't even guarantee life to people then.
But
come on, man.
I mean, this is essential.
This is idiotic.
I remember in Jamaica, while I was a student there at Mona, water was off in the rural areas. But one of the university lecturer, Dr. Witter, said, you know what happened? The water passed, the country people come into town. You know what the people do? The people block the road. Since all you don't get all your skin beard and coming in, we gonna block the road so that all we to bring attention. And I'm saying to the Nevis people, we are allowing the CCM to use us, to abuse us, and to treat us as nobodies, because under the Nevis Reformation Party, we fixed the water problem, we gave you modern roads, and we gave you education, health, housing, the works. And whether we backed PAM or Labour, you got your results. You got your results. And you can't tell me, Kel, they say it's nearly $1 trillion we raised in that period of time, you know, since the CBI. Where is the evidence of projects in Nevis? Every time government fails in Nevis, they run back to the thing, bone in your rice and pepper in your soup, especially if it's the Labour Party in power. And I think that is unfair and wrong. When you get a government, you must do your work. I wanted to go to Cuba to carry people for health care. I couldn't do it as a minister in the government in Nevis. So I called Minister Hobart and said, look, you know. But what I'm saying, Ken, we cannot continue with this emotional blackmail.
All right,
it's bad for us.
Hence they say we cannot continue with this emotional roller coaster that these politicians want to take us on at their convenience. It's called divide and conquer. And as I come to my final clip from the On Point program last Saturday, I got to say respect to the man Tulu, because I realized that he gave me some accolades for my service here and the DJ Morrishaw experience. So I'll play it for you to hear Brother Tulu. And I have sent invitation to Brother Tulu to join me here in the past, but I know he was having some medical issues and ended up in the hospital. But that invitation is open for Tulu and his team to join me at any time that we can continue having this conversation. So this is the final clip from the On Point program on Saturday, where Tulu gave his observation in what's happening amongst the social media individuals.
Talking about the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis. And one of the things that is on my mind is that out of St. Kitts, we have a lot of radio shows, discussion like we have in here. Which of those shows you find that plays a great emphasis on what takes place in Nevis? And I must congratulate DJ Morrishaw, because since he came on the scene, especially since the last election, he has been pushing and championing and plodding for the people of Nevis. The reason why we are so far apart in terms of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis in connection with what's taking place on both islands, why we know more about what's taking place because we talk about it. People of Nevis know. In St. Kitts, their program doesn't talk about Nevis. As a matter of fact, we look again. I go back to the Prime Minister. I go back to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is my Prime Minister. And I've been here bawling for months now about what's going on at the airport. And I have not heard him made in all of the press conferences that they have in St. Kitts. I have not heard him one time mention anything about the airport. Nothing about the hospital, and I'm not saying I'm going to blame them for that, but I'm saying the reason why this seems to be this disconnect between the people is because Nevis seems to be a secondary thought towards in St. Kitts.
Yes, that's my boy Tulu giving his 2 cents there in observation in what is happening. Well, folks, we are now exactly 1 hour and 2 minutes in overtime. And I'm not taking it much further than this. I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. I want to thank the man, Brother Andrew Huey, for coming on the program and field some questions and present his stuff. I also want to remind you that as we transform to the YouTube channel, I would like you to log on to YouTube, find the DJ Morrishaw link, and you just record yourself there and subscribe and hit that bell. Just hit the subscribe button, hit that bell. You'll be getting notification as we go along. This weekend, the Calypso show in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands kicks off the VI Festival in St. Thomas. The Calypso show will be featuring various artists, but one of my favorite artists on that show this coming Saturday is my good friend, the man Livingston X-Man Harris, cricketer, contractor, and Calypsonians. And since it's the final program before the Calypso show, I cannot leave here this evening without dropping his 2 tracks. One entitled Mailing Address, second one, Foul Cock. And once I drop those 2 tracks, I'm going to drop my unofficial national anthem of St. Kitts Nevis, Arise by the Man, the King Arrow, and we're out of here. And again, I want to thank all your folks online for your comments, your contribution. Continue to support the cause as we try to sensitize the general public of St. Kitts Nevis at home and abroad, locally, regionally, and internationally. Stand by for the man X-Man Livingston Harris. Big up the man Mean Dean. How you doing, my brother?
Yeah, man. Spadix. I'm the X-Man again. Then borrows me in the bank, man. Nairo. I went to a bank with my dear mother. I'm telling all you frank the problems I encounter. Customer service told her she needs a mailing address for them to help her with any business. So I rush out the bank real quick, went and put on my mother dress, went back to the bank and the mailing address. Oh yes, I say look me, I'm the mailing address. See me, you ask my mother for. Look me, I'm the mailing address. The mailing address you ask my mother for. See me, Whoa, Trevor. man and no man Trevor. Hey, feelings. My mother was shocked when she see her son dressed up in her frock, looking so handsome. Customer service start to laugh, call me a real big fat young man, you are a comedian. So I ask them what is wrong, why am I a comedian? I'm the mailing address you ask my mother for. Oh yes, I say look me, I'm the mailing address. See me, you ask my mother for. Look me, I'm the mailing address. The mailing address you ask my mother for. See me, whoa, whoa, son, no. Thank you, son, for letting me know. A mailing address does not mean a man in a dress. Thank you, man. Hey. All you look me cross, they call me a fat for putting on that dress as the mailing address. Customer service make me shame by calling me such name. I'm not to be blamed, man. My people, help me out, please. I need your opinion. Do all you think that X-man is wrong? Tell me. I say, look me, I'm the mailing address. See me, you ask my mother for. Look me, I'm the mailing address. The mailing address you ask my mother for. See me, look me, I'm the mailing address. See me, you ask my mother for. Look me, I'm the mailing address. The mailing address you ask my mother for. See me, hey. Yeah, man. Hey, DJ Morrishaw, you want to couldn't tell me, man. A mailing address does not mean a man in a dress, man. Hey.
Yes, that's the song of the man X-Man. That track is called Mailing Address. For you folks that is online, I would like to let you know next Wednesday we'll be featuring our former police commissioner, Commissioner C.G. Walwyn will be joining me next Wednesday to have some discussion about the crime wave in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis and recommendation that can be used to assist. So I look forward to Brother C.G. Walwyn joining me next Wednesday. I want to say good night to Sister Loretta Queely there. Loretta Clark Queely, how are you doing? Good evening. How about Delicious Nicholas? Gigi Williams, everything good with you? The man Ivor, man, you got me working overtime tonight, but I'm gonna drop another track before we get out of here. I want to pick up my good buddy there over at the Jamrock restaurant in Frigate Bay, the man Michael Clark. Don't forget to go over there and support businesses that support you. The brother Michael Clark is a supporter of the community. Also, the man Marshalls up the hill there from the roundabout, love the food. All your folks that'll be going home for music festival, don't forget to check out the Jamrock restaurant, the Marshalls, also my good buddies there in Old Road, the Spratnet Boys. Lovely event there on a Wednesday evening, so check them out. And for you folks who are looking for clothing of all ages, all sizes, all beauties, music festival time, and you all be shopping to dress and look nice in your dandan. Don't forget to check my Gloria there, my cousin Gloria Hutchinson there at Smart Fit. There's a location right there in Keon Street across from the gas station, just off 4th Street there. And the main store is up at Central Street next to Skelec in the old Simaco building. Just tell Gloria DJ Morrishaw sent you and she'll give you a discount. Very lovely lady. You know, just check her out. And for your folks that are looking places to stay, have a session or whatever, just contact my uncle there, Uncle Joseph down at Garvey's Estate. He'll be happy to accommodate. Just tell him DJ Morrishaw sent you. And as I said, folks, this program, when I finish this evening, will be live on YouTube. Thanks to my technician there, the man Elvin Ellie, for doing a good job and keeping the page going. So right after here, you can go back on YouTube. Remember to log on to DJ Morrishaw, subscribe and hit that bell as we get prepared to transfer to YouTube directly. I know a lot of you has been going there and looking at the shows. It's okay to look at the shows, but we want you to subscribe. We want to have good things for you guys. We want to be able to notify you when we come online. So I look forward to you doing your subscribing, smash that bell, and keep the program alive. I'm gonna drop this track by X-Men. This one is called the Falcock here.
Yeah, man. Spot it. I'm the X-Man again. From the time I born, man, I get a little Falcock as me company. And now it come big. Diana holding on to it like it belongs to she, man. Aye. From the time I born, I get a Falcock. Tiny, tiny, tiny and black. And all that I did for my rooster, he'll even never come back. I say never come back. Now I started to investigate. I went down by me neighbor gate. My neighbor named Diana, she get a little cat for summer. Still she have me roots and she backyard holding hard, hard, hard. Hear me, Diana, don't hold me rooster so hard. Diana, I know it's in your yard. Girl, you get a little cat, play with that. Leave my rooster alone, let the Falcock come back home, come back home. Yeah, man. Hey, Trevor, Diana tell me she know you well, and you tell her what to do if the rooster come in she yard, man. Trevor, what you tell Diana? Hey! So I decided to ask Diana what Trevor told her to do my rooster. But she did not even respond to me. Man, I felt so guilty. I say I felt so guilty. Now I don't really know what to do. I really felt bad for true. Man, Trevor is me partner. He's like my younger brother. But I want to know what he tell Diana to do my rooster. Hear me, Diana, don't hold me rooster so hard. Diana, I know it's in your yard. Girl, you get a little cat, play with that. Leave my rooster alone, let the Falcock come back home, come back home. Yeah, man. Hey, listen, Diana, regardless of what Trevor tell you, let me tell you something. Be careful you kill my rooster, man, because I can't get another one. That's the original. They don't sell them, Diana. Hey! The rooster make a motion to fly away. Diana squeeze it tight to make it stay. She then put the rooster on her lap. I asked Diana, what's that? I say, Diana, what's that? From that day on, Diana wouldn't stop rubbing down my rooster favorite spot. When she rubbed me rooster head, my rooster comb turned red. I'm so glad it wasn't dead. On my knees I start to beg. Hear me, Diana, don't hold me rooster so hard. Diana, I know it's in your yard. Girl, you get a little cat, play with that. Leave my rooster alone, let the Falcock come back home, come back home. Yeah, man. Hey, Parky, you Elvis, Brian Godfrey and Delbert, tell Diana, man, let me rooster come back home, man. Diana, please, please, let me rooster come back home.
Yeah, sounds of the man. X-Man there. This one is called Foul Cock. The first one was mailing address. I look forward to seeing my brother there, brother X-Man performing those two tracks on Saturday at the Calypso show. And I know that he will come through with something heavy there. I'm gonna drop this final track here. This one is called Arise, coming from our unnamed national hero, an official national anthem of the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis. I want to take this time to big up my good friend there, dancing commissioner, retired commissioner, the brother Austin Williams, and sister Laura. How about the mean green? The man there, brother Francis. How are you doing? How is Leah? And my boy there, brother Hendrickson and Dams. Look forward to seeing you guys shortly. The man Sugars, the man Twinkie, how are you doing? Catherine Morris, how about Weezy? Everybody good? Again, I just want to thank my uncle there, brother Eustace Hutchinson, for accommodating me here with his internet link for this evening. I guess I didn't hail up my boy Eustace Hendrickson earlier over there in the Houston area, so my brain is reminding me that I have to touch my brother Eustace Hendrickson over there in the Houston area. Also want to touch my boy Kibo, the man KO. How about brother Dwayne, the man there Ogaro, Wayne Ogaro, how are you doing? Big up the man Monarch, the man Rascal, how are you doing? GQ, EK, the man Curtis Cook, not forgetting one of the boss DJs there in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, the man by the name of DJ Rabuka. Yeah, man, big DJ there. The man have archives to give trouble with, eh? Anything that DJ Morrishaw need, just have to scale up the man Rabuka, and everything is in my inbox. Big up to the man DJ Rabuka. Also the man Theo Clark, Baby Sutton, how you doing? The man Engel Francis, Engel, how you doing? The man Shama Shamrock, how you doing? The man Sassio Francis, the man Ben Francis. Thanks for the sugar kid, my brother. How about the man there, Shabby Dan, and the family traveling someplace somehow. The man George Nisbet, hanging out someplace around the world. Good evening, my brother. We're gonna drop the final track. This one is called Arise, like I always say. Listen to the lyrics. I know the music is very enticing and you're gonna bounce, but lyrically strong. Listen to the lyrics. I want to big up my cousin there one more time, the man Kent Bernier, Pamela Benny and crew, Kalan, and all the family members there on the VI and around the globe. Gwyneth Morrishaw, how are you doing? How is Sister Beverly? You guys okay, Kia? I also want to touch my folks there in the Tobago area. Sister Gloria Beard, Victor Beard. How about Missionary Wallace, Deborah Wallace, the man Roger Wallace, my girl there, Sister Melissa Beard and crew, my boy Daniel in Trinidad and Chanel and grandkids there. Hope you guys are okay. My baby girl, I miss you. We'll be seeing you shortly. My son there, Jeffroy Jr. in the LA area, enough love. I want to big up my boy G.A. Dwyer Astaphan, the man Sam Conda, how are you doing? The man Larry Vaughan, Douglas Watley, the man Big Lice, how are you doing? Everything good with you? Ira McMahon, the big JL, Dame, H.E., this is the man still alive, but how are you doing? Governor General. I want to also big up my cousin there, Dr. Martin, how are you doing? And crew. The Talk Puppy, how are you doing, my brother? I haven't heard from you in a bit. Hope all is well with you there in the store. The man here, Brown, hope all is well with you as well. Want to touch my boy Giza down there at the ferry terminal. Remember, Giza have some lovely jerk pigtail and jerk pork, jerk chicken every weekend. So check him down there at the ferry terminal. Tell him DJ Morrishaw sent you. All right. My Shango as well down there, and Sister Susie at the ferry terminal. Some nice cook up, go to water, check her out. Don't forget my boy Ross over there in the Parsons area. You check out the Ross for some lovely bullfoot and cook up and, you know, formula and things. So all the folks around the globe that is listening to this program, thanks again as we drop the final track. This one is called Arise by the King Arrow, and we are out of here. Sister Cora Bennett, good evening. And Farrell Smith, hope you're well. Sister Tracy
your country dying and never lend a helping hand. Would you see your children's future dwindling, creating much disillusion? Or would we watch on idly, disregarding our self-sufficiency? Maladministration building a brand new nation. We'll move on together hand in hand. Rise, citizens, arise. The country is yours, all yours, still yours. Building a wall so massive or a bridge, don't care how small, as one tends to divide our people, the other unite us all. Unambitious men just cannot be a part of this community. Selfishness, a total lack of interest. No, I said no, not at all. Citizens, let's unite and stand up for rights, all our lives and our lives. Let us reintegrate and correct our mistakes. Reunification, building a brand new nation. We move on together hand in hand. Rise, citizens, arise. The country is yours, all yours, still yours. Come on.
my people. That's a solid hour and a half overtime. Somebody gonna have to pay me overtime tonight. I want to say good evening to my cousin dear brother George Dennis Morris. How are you doing over there in St. Thomas? How about Marcia Jones? How are you doing? Everything good? Valerie Hanley, how are you doing? The boy Ivor, you're gonna have to pay for the overtime, my brother. Francil Bennett, how are you doing? Good evening. How about Sandy Daniel Wilkin? How are you doing? Joan, how are you doing? Janice Williams. How about Sister Jennifer Lord? How are you doing? Everything good with you? Carrie Ann Archibald, good evening. How are you doing? Esther Tyson, how are you doing? I want to big up one more time my brother, the man, Andrew Huey, for joining me earlier and this beautiful evening, taking me into enough overtime. After a chat with Andrew Huey, I had to extend the program a bit and still didn't get around to everything that I normally would do, but hour and a half is enough. I want to big up my brother there, Mean Dean. Thanks again, my brother, for all of your support while I'm here. The man Desmond Hicks. Thanks. The man Mr. Cheap, taking care of his son as usual. I also want to big up the Jarvis family, the man Galloway and Kudia over at the Unique Cricket Ground. Nice pastor, the beautiful funeral. The sermon today was awesome. I wanted to speak about that sermon today, but I will leave that for another program because that minister really opened up my eyes to a lot of your wicked people we have around there in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis, especially a politician who fool the people, tell them all kind of things. Now when they get in there, they forget why they was elected to take care of the people business. We don't get into all of that at another time. Right now it's too late to get into that. I just want to say enough respect to everyone online, all of your listeners, whoever will be listening to this program at some other point. I want to say enough respect, love to everyone, God's blessing on everyone. Don't forget, log on to YouTube, find the DJ Morrishaw link, DJ MORRISHAW, subscribe and hit that bell that we could transform to the YouTube channel. I just want to say, your Kittitian at home and abroad, just support the government. They're going to get it done right. Divisions, I understand how you guys feel. I feel your pain. I understand what you're calling for. It's within reason. And I can say, without even speaking to the PM, that he will do the right thing for Nevis. You know, Dr. Joe is an honorable person, and I know he will make the time to do what is to be done for the people of Nevis, alike St. Kitts. So until such time, have a good night. Thanks again for another lovely evening.